o'clock. We're going to open the public meeting. Public input. All meetings are televised live and available on demand by Chelmsford Telemedia at www.chelmsfordtv.org. Public input. Public input shall be limited to statements from the public relating to any issues with the jurisdiction of the Chelmsford Zoning Board of Appeals that are not currently the subject of a pending public hearing before the Zoning Board of Appeals. Public comment on any pending public hearing shall only be heard during such public hearings and may be limited to 3 minutes' time. There is no administrative review tonight. We have a new public hearing, 17 Crabapple Lane. Barbara and Douglas Shepherd are requesting a special permits under zoning bylaw section 195, 6.1 for the construction of an addition for a limited accessory apartment, LAA, and section 195-9B conformity for a 20% reduction to the side setback requirement of 25 feet to 20 feet for the LAA, an attached garage addition. Other relief is deemed necessary. This property is located in the residential RB district. Someone here tonight to speak for 17 Crabapple?
Yes. I am going to have to recuse myself.
Okay. Good evening. If I get your name and address for the record, please.
Ed Greaves, 7 Fleetwood Drive, Chelmsford, Mass. Okay, and I'm here representing the people that own 17 Crabapple, and just applying for the LAA. And I don't know if you looked at the plot plan. We're gonna, there was 2 buildings on the property that encroached on the property side setbacks, which we are gonna remove both of them, conforming with a letter that was sent to me by Jose Negron.
So you have an 8-foot deck and a 12, I see, no, you have a 12-foot deck and a 12-foot addition. Is that a single story or a 2-story?
Single story. There is 2 common areas.
Yeah.
There is 2 common areas on that plan. One's a hallway to the backyard from the existing structure on the right, and then the other one is 10 by 12 room that's behind the new garage.
So you're gonna have 2 garages now? One proposed in the backyard, like
Yes,
in the farther back,
Yep.
and then the new one up front.
yes.
What is the square footage of the actual LAA?
744 square feet.
Are you able to see the dimensions on that?
Is the new garage supposed to be for the, or the one that's attached to the house gonna be for the LAA?
Yes,
Okay.
yep.
Very large right there.
Yeah, I'm noticing it's blurry.
Addition.
Further questions from the board at this time?
All set.
I'm going to go ahead and read the letters in. I have a letter from the Fire Prevention Office. Dear members of the board, in regards to the special permit request for the LAA at 17 Crabapple Lane, this office finds the following. The new proposed addition and the existing structure must be brought up to the current code 780 CMR for smoke, carbon monoxide, and heat detectors, type, locations, and power source. The applicant is advised to submit the plans to the Fire Prevention Office for review and approval prior to the issuance of a building permit. An application with the town's clerk's office E911 committee must also be filed for separate addressing purposes, and the marking of the unit must be done to denote separate units at the address. This office would approve this plan with these conditions, and I ask the board to make this letter part of their approval process and public record. Sincerely, Josh Abbott, Captain, Fire Prevention, Chelmsford Fire Department. I have a letter from Sheila Joyce, project engineer for the town. Dear members, this office has reviewed the project application plans documents submitted to the DPW on December 27th, 2024, for the following public hearing notice on January 2nd, 2025. As a result of this review, the office has the following comments. No increase to the town of Chelmsford sewer infrastructure shall be more than 500 gallons per day per CMR, per CMR 15.000. Title 5, sewage flow per bedroom of a dwelling is estimated to equal 110 gallons per day. One bedroom is proposed. One bedroom equals 110 gallons per day equals 110 gallons per day. Proposed additional flow is acceptable as of January 2nd, 2024. The DPW shall monitor and enforce the sewer flow limitations and impose penalties for the violations thereof in accordance with the town's sewer policy. Per Town of Chelmsford sewer use regulations, the Sewer Commission established the estimated cost of increasing the treatment facility capacity of the systems to be $15 per gallon of daily wastewater flow. The sewer impact fee, $15 per gallon, times 110 gallons per day, equals $1,650. This shall be paid to the DPW sewer prior to the certificate of occupancy. If there is a change in use or expansion, the applicant should submit necessary floor plans to supplement the sewer allocation calculations. Proposed additional garages are not permitted to connect to sewer.
19?
Erosion control devices must retain the sediment on site. They must be installed prior to any work or demolition.
31 by 24.
A driveway permit may be required if there's a newly proposed driveway or modifications for the second garage built in the rear of the house. The applicant must contact the DPW Engineering Division to coordinate. Consideration should be made to install roof drain dry wells or equivalent to infiltrate roof runoff. This is not a requirement for approval. I have a letter from the treasurer tax collector. Please contact the tax collector's office, outstanding balance for FY25 quarter 2 bill due 11/1/2024. I have a letter from the police citing no concerns. I have a letter from the Board of Health citing no concerns. I have a letter from the Chelmsford Water District citing no concerns. That is the extent of my letters for this application. Any further questions from the board? Seeing none, I'm going to open this up to public comment. Anyone in the audience would like to speak in favor or opposition to this application? Now is the time. Seeing none,
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing, Brian.
Second?
second by Steve. All in favor? Aye. We'll take this up right now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think we should. I'd like to make a motion to approve 17 Crabapple Lane, special permits under bylaw 195, 6.1 and 195-9, subsection B, with consideration with all the letters written into our meeting.
I'll second.
Second by Peter. All in favor? Opposed? None? It's unanimous.
Marvelous. Hey, that's not bad. The first meeting of the year, first person up, and it's a win.
Very good.
Number one.
Yep, yep. Okay, so we're all set?
Yes, sir.
Thank
Good
you.
luck. So,
Were you eavesdropping?
I hear the laughter.
That's why I said.
Jovial
all the letters, right?
It's a jovial group. We laugh all the time.
with you. We have a continued public hearing, 14 Crosby Lane. Ronald D. and Anne Marie Greenwood are requesting to renew an expired, previously approved special permit under Section 195-61 for the construction of an addition for a limited accessory apartment, LAA, or any other relief deemed necessary. This property is located in the residential RB district. I do not believe we've taken any testimony at this point.
We have not. This is under continued public hearing, but it was continued without discussion, and I have not heard back from Attorney Doug Hausler regarding today. You may recall that, the last month, the previous month, we had asked to continue for today, and he gave us an extension of time to act until the end of March. However, I did send out an email and I haven't heard back from him, so I don't know if his office is closed for the holidays and he wasn't returned, or something happened where he's not able to access his emails, but I have not heard from him.
Well, where the extension was issued to March, I think we can continue this without too much
There's nobody here.
concern. There's no one here. No one is here to speak for this tonight. Is that correct? I would like to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to continue 14 Crosby Lane.
Until February, was it
Sixth, I believe.
6th?
6th?
Yeah.
February 6th?
Second, Brian.
All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous? Okay, our next hearing, I think is an additional continuation. Morose Avenue Cobblestones 5 LLC is requesting a comprehensive permit, 40B, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40B. The project proposes to construct 5 rental units, of which 4 will be duplexes and 1 will be a single structure. So we should probably correct that, because I think that wasn't that, didn't that change to the, they decided to make that a
It's still a
duplex?
single structure.
In the application, that's the way we're looking at it, okay.
They've just changed it from a two-story colonial to
single
a
ranch.
ranch.
Well, that's what it was, okay. Single structure, but single story as well. And there's a request for a continuation there
There
as
is,
well.
And it's attached to the agenda, and I can pull that up.
So we also have a request for continuation for Morose Ave. Someone would like to make a motion to continue to February 6th.
Is there no number on that one? It's just Morose Ave?
Yes.
Oh.
The lot doesn't have a number on it.
I'll make a motion to continue Marosa Avenue till February 6th.
Second,
I'll second.
by Peter. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Unanimous.
Actually, 1, 2, 3.
I think, right?
Just the other 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, sure.
Doesn't need-
I don't think Steve can vote on Rose.
Can I
Is
vote to
Steve voting
continue?
on
right.
Morose?
No. So can I just see the hands again, because, thank you for reminding me,
Oh, Steve.
I can't continue it even?
Can't do
Not
two.
voting on it, I'm just continuing it. I don't-
Have you, oh, you're out.
I missed
You can't
two.
do-
not eligible for
Yeah,
the hearing
okay.
itself.
So, for the sake of doing it right, we might as well,
Yeah, I might as well keep him out of it. Sorry.
So it's like all hands again.
Rod, Danny, Peter, Charlie.
I'll put that you abstained.
I came here for the points.
The last one.
It's not like you get discharged after 80 points, you know.
My fantasy league is gonna suffer because of this.
It's not already, right? Okay, our next continued hearing is Ledge Road, owner Ledge Road Realty Holdings and Newport Aggregates LLC, requesting an administrative appeal under the zoning bylaw section 19502B3 of a cease and desist order issued by the building commissioner relative to the use of Ledge Road for commercial vehicles and any other relief deemed necessary. Ledge Road is located in the residential RB zoning district. Someone here tonight to speak for Ledge Road or Newport Aggregates?
Has there been testimony on this one?
When was the last?
So there has been
There've
no
been continuation, but no
testimony on this one yet,
testimony.
so everyone's eligible to hear.
'Cause I don't.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is David McKay. I'm from Myrick O'Connell, and it's a pleasure to appear before you this evening. I also have the pleasure of representing Ledge Road Realty and Newport Aggregates in this matter. I'm joined tonight by Attorney John DeFelice and also by his brother, Richard Jr., who is an officer in the company, and I regret that Mr. DeFelice Sr. was not able to join us tonight as he is attending to a private and personal matter. As you indicated, this is an appeal of an enforcement order issued by the building inspector on September 9th of 2024. In this matter, it's the zoning enforcement officer and the town that bears the burden of proof of establishing the zoning violation. It's not Newport's burden to prove that to you or to defend in any way the enforcement order. It is the town's burden to do that. We're not here seeking a permit from the board. We're not here on a special permit or site plan review or anything of that nature. As the board knows, we submitted a detailed memorandum outlining our position on these issues on October 31st. I hope you have that. I have plenty of extra copies if the board doesn't. And Ms. De Silva, would it be possible to pull up the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So as we set forth in our memorandum, this enforcement order should be overturned for at least 3 reasons. First, the order is arbitrary and unfair. Second, the order is based on certain factual errors. And third, the order is illegal under a number of legal doctrines that are detailed in the memorandum and that I'll also talk more about tonight. In saying all that, I want to emphasize that we understand the traffic concerns that are raised by the neighbors. I'll address those later on, but the issue before the board this evening is strictly under the enforcement order. With respect to that order, there are several reasons why the order is arbitrary and unfair. As the board may know, there are several commercial and industrial users of Ledge Road, not just Newport. If you read the enforcement order, you might think otherwise, but there are actually several businesses that use Ledge Road regularly. One of which is Newport, of course. The other is Graves Granite, which has a quarry operation in Westford. The Gilmets also have commercial businesses there, and LeMaistre Granite also operates and uses Ledge Road, and yet the enforcement order was issued only to one of those at least 4 users. Wasn't issued to the LeMaistres, wasn't issued to the Gilmets, and wasn't issued to Graves Granite. And I think that sort of speaks volumes to the degree to which this is an arbitrary enforcement order in that regard. I also want to note that there were several traffic studies and reports that were posted to the town's website, and apparently those are the basis or form the basis for this enforcement order. In our view, those are not relevant to the issues that are before this board, and the traffic studies themselves are arbitrary and unreliable. The reports make no real attempt to differentiate the commercial traffic generated by Newport as opposed to Graves, as opposed to Le Mesurier, as opposed to the Guillemets. The 2023 report acknowledges that the data is simply incomplete. I'll point out that that report in particular is problematic in that it's not signed by anyone, certainly doesn't have an engineer stamp, it's not apparent who drafted or prepared that report. It also references in that report a north scale, suggesting that traffic that was going to that north scale is attributable to Newport, and that is simply not the case. The north scale is operated by Graves Granite, and that's a part of their operation. It's also arbitrary to use 2013 as sort of the starting point or the baseline for the traffic data that's referenced in some of that documentation that was submitted to the board by the town. This relates to commercial granite, gravel, material businesses that have been operating up on Oak Hill for over 100 years. Newport is one of them. Le Mesurier is another one. Graves is another one. And so in that regard, it's our view that the traffic studies are not relevant for all of the reasons that I just mentioned, but also the way the enforcement order was written is it's an all or nothing affair. It's not attempting to regulate the traffic in any way. It's attempting to shut down Newport, and by extension, I would assume, at least by logical extension, it would shut down the other commercial businesses that also use that portion of Ledge Road. I should say, too, that we don't believe that this is an appropriate forum to talk about alternate access. This is an appeal of an enforcement order that didn't reference alternate access or anything of that nature. As you certainly know, Newport doesn't control the roadways. It's not within our power to do eminent domain takings and build a new road elsewhere or to do things of that nature. It's the town, and specifically the town of Chelmsford in this instance, that controls the roadways. It's also notable that the town's own June 23rd report notes that it is beyond the town of Chelmsford's rights to restrict truck traffic without offering an alternate route. And so I should note that we were willing and remain willing to have a dialogue with the town about alternate access. I don't think that's what we're here in front of this board tonight. That's certainly not part of your charge. But that was the reason that we continued the hearing on the first night, was to have that meeting, and we were told that the town wasn't interested in meeting with us to do that. And so that's why we're here before you tonight. Ms. De Silva, if you could go to slide 2. I'd like to talk a little bit about kind of the history of the site. That's the enforcement order that we received.
Is it this one?
Yeah, that's the one. Thank you. So this shows several of the parcels in the area, and I just want to kind of point out sort of what some of these are to help orient the board a little bit. So this is Ledge Road here. A little tough to see on this screen, but you do have hard copies of it.
They actually have a better locus. Let's see. Here we go. This one might be better with the towns.
So I think you need to scroll.
Do you want me to go off?
Nope, and in the other direction. Is this reversed?
It is.
Okay, that's really gonna throw me off. Let's go
Yeah,
back to
wanna
the
go back
other
to the other
one.
one? Okay. Here we go.
Yeah. So this is the parcel where Newport is located and the Le Mesurier quarry. The Graves quarry operates on this parcel here, which I think is 4821 and 483. And of course, this is Ledge Road coming in over here, and then obviously you've got Route 3 coming right in between. So when we're talking about vehicles that are coming through Ledge Road, accessing this area, which has been called Oak Hill and has been called Oak Hill for for some period of time. There are multiple operations that are happening up here, all of which relate to, or all of which use Ledge Road as the access. When I mentioned a couple moments ago the north scale is actually on this parcel here, which is not a Newport parcel. That's a Graves Granite parcel, and that's their building that's shown on that plan. So all of those businesses use Ledge Road as access, and historically that has been the case. Quarrying operations have been ongoing in that area since at least 1912. If you, Ms. De Silva, can go to slide 4 and 5. So this is an old historical map. I believe it dates from 1921. And what it shows is outlined in red the Graves Granite and the Newport parcels. This also includes Le Majoret Granite, and it shows Ledge Road as an access going into those quarrying operations. And so that's been the case for many years, long predates any of the homes that are on Ledge Road currently. And in fact, the granite that's been mined from that area for over 100 years, as you might know, called Chelmsford granite, and it's long been known by that name. I should add that this is an allowed by right use in the town of Westford, where the quarrying operations themselves are located. It's in the industrial C district. Under the Westford zoning bylaw defines quarrying and mining as the extraction of rock and the processing and finishing of the products thereof, rock crushing, lime kilns, and lumbering. I do have a handout for the board because I'm not sure if some of this is in the record. Not a ton of room up here. So, if I may, I've got copies of the Westford zoning map showing this.
Thank you.
Located in the industrial C district, so that's in the northern portion of that zoning map. And those current uses are consistent with the longtime historic uses of granite, granite cutting, and the processing of earth materials and granites. In 1958, there was a land taking that was done by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for the construction of Route 3. Ever since that taking was done and Route 3 was constructed, Ledge Road has been the exclusive access to all of these businesses, including Newport, as well as what was then the Gilmet Quarry and is now the Graves Granite Quarry. And I would suggest to the board that Newport's use cannot be rendered illegal or non-conforming by the Commonwealth's taking almost 70 years ago. If we can go back to slide 2 for just a second, to the enforcement order, there are a couple of things, and I think that enforcement order was drafted in a particular way, and I want to point a couple of those things out. First, the enforcement order does not concern the public portion of Ledge Road. There is, I'm aware of evidence from the town and neighbor complaints and concerns over the public portion of Ledge Road, but the enforcement order is drafted specifically with respect to the use of the private portion of Ledge Road. I also note that the enforcement order is not a question of degree. It prohibits business use entirely, and I just want to be clear for the board so that the board understands exactly what that means in this context. That would put my client out of business. If they can't get into the property from Ledge Road, which has been the only and exclusive access for 70 years, they won't have a business. And if you, again, take that order to its logical conclusion, if that road can't be used for commercial purposes by Newport, it also can't be used for commercial purposes by any of the other users, Le Mesurier, Graves, or the Gilmets, and that will presumably put all of them out of business. Now, we are not insensitive to and deaf to the concerns that have raised by the residents. We recognize that the trucks make noise. My client makes a lot of efforts to try and be good neighbors. At the same time, this is a quarry, and this has been a quarry for over 100 years. Again, the quarries predate any of the residential properties on Ledge Road. There's about 25 properties on Ledge Road. Half of them are owned by the Gilmets, who operated what is now the Graves Quarry for many years. Of the rest, most of them were purchased in the last 5 or 10 years during a time period in which it's been well known, certainly during that time, if not for decades before, that this was the historical access to the quarrying operations. I want to emphasize, too, that these are legitimate, long-term, long-functioning businesses that have been operating off of Ledge Road. That's been the case for many years. These businesses provide granite and aggregates that are needed for roads, for all kinds of construction projects, septic systems, all things of that nature. And Newport, Le Mesurier, and Graves all provide those kinds of materials that are needed for these projects. And that includes providing jobs for all the folks that work in the quarries, as well as for the folks whose construction jobs depend on the materials that we provide. In fact, one of our customers is the town of Chelmsford. The town of Chelmsford has been purchasing materials from Newport for as long as Newport has been operating on that site, since 2017. I believe they've been a recurring customer every single year that Newport has been operating under, and they bring material, and they not only purchase materials from that site, but they also send materials for processing up to the Newport site. I want to also emphasize what we're not doing on that site, because I've seen some reference to that in some of the documents and some of the dialogue. The town, Newport is not using this site as a back door to the asphalt operation that is accessed off of Route 40. There are no asphalt plant customers that are accessing that site through Ledge Road. And we at Newport are not sending business for the asphalt plant through Ledge Road. There are legitimate ways to address the any issues with respect to traffic on Ledge Road, but I would submit to the board that this enforcement order is not one of them. In fact, the town explored many of these options and has decided not to move forward with any of them for their own reasons, and I won't speculate for what those reasons are. But in January 2023, so just 2 years ago, there was a feasibility study conducted by the town. It's in the materials that were submitted by the town to the board and are posted to the agenda. It was a feasibility study by the Northern Middlesex County of Governments that looked at several alternate access points for the Newport operation, and presumably for the other businesses that operate in that area. They explored the possibility of a new interchange on Route 3. They looked into Ward Road, which is a private road in Westford. Also looked into Commerce Way. At the Board of Selectmen hearing at which that study was presented, the town admitted that moving all of the traffic to Route 40 may not help and may actually make matters worse. My point in all this is that these are known planning issues, and they are outside of our ability to control. I submit they're mostly outside of your ability to control, too. I should also add that the town litigated many of these issues back in 2017. As you folks may know, there was extensive litigation involving the asphalt plant between the town of Westford and Newport Materials. Ultimately, that resulted in a settlement agreement, a very detailed settlement agreement that's included in our papers. And the town of Chelmsford challenged that settlement. It challenged the agreement for judgment that was entered in the land court to effectuate that settlement. And ultimately, the town of Chelmsford's appeal was not successful, and they were not able to overturn that settlement. And so there were ways in which the town can and could have addressed these issues on Ledge Road, and it's not doing so. Instead, it's resorted to what we view as an illegal, unfair, arbitrary enforcement order. After 100 years of quarrying up on Oak Hill, they've manufactured a zoning problem and a zoning violation, and that's just not what this is. This isn't your problem to solve. It isn't our problem to solve because we can't solve it alone. It's the town that has a policy and a traffic problem, and it's really only the town, and perhaps in cooperation with the towns of Westford, that can change the way traffic gets routed. And again, I already mentioned that the town has recognized as much in its own traffic study, which notes that it's beyond the town of Chelmsford's right to restrict the truck traffic without offering an alternate route. So that's the first reason. It really goes to fairness and the arbitrary nature of the enforcement order. The enforcement order should also be overturned by this board because it relies on at least 3 fundamental errors of fact. The first is that the private portion of Ledge Road is residential. Parcel 6413, which is owned by the Gilmets, contains that private portion of Ledge Road that is referenced in the enforcement order. That parcel has been in commercial use for decades. In fact, back in the 1950s and 1960s, that area was zoned limited industrial.
It's 6414, didn't
It says
6413.
We received from the town a copy of some historic zoning maps, one of which dates from 1956. I have copies of that for the board. We also, I have to admit that the copies of the zoning map that we received from the town were not great. I think they did the best that they could with some of those historic maps, but a blow-up of the map shows this as 7. It's the zoning area referenced as 7, and that is indicated as limited industrial. That also fits with the other historical documents that we found with respect to that particular parcel, because it has 2 commercial buildings on it, both of which were built pursuant to building permits issued in 1952, and these are building permits issued by the town of Chelmsford. So really, the only real use of this parcel is for commercial and industrial uses. If we can go to slide 8 for a moment. Actually, can we scroll back up just to that photo of the bridge?
This one here?
Yes, please, thank you. I neglected to mention, this is the bridge on Ledge Road going under Route 3. This was constructed in 1959 and purposely constructed so that trucks could fit and access the site. So this has been, as I mentioned, not only the exclusive access to both what was then Roma Stone and the LeMagerie quarry, but also to the Gilmet quarry that's now operated by Graves Granite. Obviously constructed with sufficient height for the trucks to go through. If you could fast forward then to slide 8, I think it is. Yes.
This one here?
Yeah, that's the one. Okay, so little tough to see in this photo, but this is the parcel that we're talking about here as a sort of a faint yellow outline. This property is owned by the Gilmets. I think they have it in an LLC. And I think it's important to not only to help orient the board, but you see the kind of use to which that property is being put. So this is one of the commercial buildings. Obvious commercial uses down here as well. Down here you see materials processing and handling that's being done, piles of earth materials there, processing being done here. So this parcel is entirely commercial, has no home or residence on it. And this is sort of one of the, I guess, documents that shows that the building inspector's suggestion in the enforcement order that this is a residential property simply isn't the case. If we can go to the next slide, please. These are some photographs of the Gilmet property. This is the property that includes the private portion of Ledge Road that's at issue in the building inspector's enforcement order. So obviously a commercial building here, you see commercial equipment there. If we can go to the next slide. Same here, and then the next slide. More of the same, and then the next slide, please, Mr. Silva. So this is sort of to the left, again on the same parcel, but shows 2 dump trucks and a tractor trailer truck here. As far as I can tell, the Gilmet property there is being used for repair. I think there's a repair station for those kinds of vehicles, but there's also other processing and other commercial and industrial uses that are happening on the property. So clearly this is not a property that's being used for residential purposes as suggested by the building enforcement order. The enforcement order also references commercial vehicles using Ledge Road to access the property are associated with your, meaning Newport's, earth removal operation on the property. That's also not accurate, as I pointed out before. Graves Granite, LeMaistre Granite, and Gilmet are also using and running commercial vehicles on that portion of Ledge Road. I also want to point out the nature and the scope of the Graves Granite operation, and I've got another handout for the board on that. These are pages from the Graves Granite website for the Chelmsford Westford operation. Again, this site is only accessed, the Graves site, through Ledge Road, and as you can see from that printout, Graves is selling and processing and manufacturing at that site all different kinds of materials and products, 17 different products, including gravel and stone of different sizes, stone dust, recycled asphalt, etc. Lastly, one of the fundamental factual errors made in the enforcement order is that it, again, doesn't distinguish between any of the commercial users that are using Ledge Road. It only speaks to Newport, and we think that demonstrates just how unfair and unjust this is. The order also suggests that the private portion of Ledge Road can only be used for residential access to the Westford properties. The natural inference from the enforcement order is that the only allowed use, at least from the building inspector's or the building commissioner's determination, for that private portion of Ledge Road would be to support residential uses in Westford. The problem with that is that there are no allowed residential uses allowed by right for the Westford property at issue with respect to Newport or for the other properties that I mentioned, Gilmet, Graves, etc., because they're all in a they're all, in an industrial district, and there is no by right residential use that's allowed in those locations. In fact, the by right use that is allowed in those locations is quarrying, mining, and other uses, again, allowed by right in the industrial C zone. Ms. De Silva, if we can go to slides 15 to 17, this speaks to sort of the practical reality of the inference that the building inspector is trying to suggest to you, which is that that private portion of Ledge Road should only be used for residential purposes, and therefore the Westford properties at issue should only be used for residential purposes. This is a view of the quarrying operation on the Newport site. As you can see, very high granite walls. This is, of course, a quarrying operation that's been going on for some time. Next slide. Again, this is another picture kind of looking back toward Chelmsford. Ledge Road would be sort of off in this area over here. But again, you get a good indication and a good sense of the nature of the quarrying operation that's been happening there for a long time. Next slide, please. And then this is a slide looking back in the opposite direction, closer to Route 3. This is one of the old quarrying areas that is now filled in with water, and you see some of the materials that are being processed and used by Newport at that site. So the suggestion that this could, as any practical matter, be used for a residential use, I think just simply isn't the case. The third reason that we're asking the board to overturn the enforcement order is that it is illegal and invalid. I won't belabor these points too much because we detailed them at some length in the memo, but I do want to point out a couple of things. The first is the Lopanis versus City of Brockton case. That case stands for the proposition that a bylaw is arbitrary and invalid if it bars access to land for any lawful use. So the Lopanis case and cases that have followed since then talk about exactly this kind of scenario where you have a commercial property or an industrial property that has only one means of access. Oftentimes that means of access is located in another town, or a portion of that access is located in another town. And in the town where most of the property is located, it's an allowed use. In the town where the access is located, it's often a residential use. And the courts have said that the town where the residential zone is located cannot prohibit that kind of access because it would rob the property in the other community, Westford in this instance, of any lawful, by right, allowed use of its property. And so on that basis, the enforcement order is illegal. Second, the enforcement order is invalid because it violates the statute of repose in Chapter 40A, Section 7, because it's been brought more than 6 years after building permits were issued. And there are several building permits at issue here, at least 3 that we've been able to find so far, 2 of which are attached to our memorandum as Exhibits E and F. The first one, Exhibit E, is a 1965, or it shows that a building permit was issued in 1965 for an office on what is now the Newport property, and that was an office to support the quarrying operations that were then being done by the LeMaisures. Second is this is Exhibit F to our memorandum. It references a 1988 building permit that was issued to Roma Stone for a storage building that was constructed for storage of crushing equipment, and it specifically references storage for crushing equipment, and that was crushing equipment that was being used by Roma Stone on what is now the Newport property for the processing of earth materials, gravel, sand, and things of the like. Third, and I have a handout for this as well. There were building permits that were issued, as I referenced a few moments ago, for the property at 57 Ledge Road. If you look at the assessor's records, you're going to see that there are two 57 Ledge Road parcels. The one that I'm referring to is parcel 64-13. The owner of that is JFG Holdings, which is a Guillemette holding company. And it references two buildings constructed, commercial buildings constructed in 1952. Again, both of them listed as commercial warehouse MDL properties. These are commercial properties, again, for building permits for commercial uses that were issued specifically for the parcel on which the private portion of Ledge Road is located. I referenced earlier, and let me 7 or 8 copies of that as well. I mentioned earlier the prior litigation, which is yet another reason why the enforcement order is invalid. In 2016, as I mentioned, Newport entered into a settlement agreement with the town of Westford. That settlement agreement, which is Exhibit N, again, came out of the Newport Materials Asphalt litigation. It recognized the Le Mesurier quarrying uses in sections 3E3 and 5. It also recognized and reserved the use of Ledge Road for the Le Mesurier quarry and for the Newport entities. Chelmsford attempted to invalidate that settlement agreement. The complaint for that is Exhibit R in our memorandum, and specifically requested that the court issue a decision overturning the settlement agreement, the agreement for judgment, and the special permit for a major commercial project. The town of Chelmsford lost that appeal. Judgment was entered against the town. The town did not appeal that, and the town, in our view, cannot now attempt to relitigate the validity of that settlement agreement, which specifically referenced and incorporated and contemplated the use of Ledge Road for access by the Newport entities to the Le Mesurier quarry property that is at issue. Lastly, there's one other reason that we believe that this enforcement order is invalid, and those are the equitable doctrines of estoppel and laches. And those are essentially equitable fairness doctrines in the law that prohibit a party, and in this instance, we contend that that includes the town, from waiting too long to take enforcement action or to take some action, or otherwise doing so in circumstances that are unfair. And the courts have allowed equitable remedies in Massachusetts for alleged zoning violations in situations where those kinds of facts have been shown. And I would submit here that where the quarrying uses have been in place for over 100 years and have had only Ledge Road as their access, that those circumstances are found here. So I'll wrap it up. I know you folks have let me go on for a while, which I appreciate, but it just shows how important this is to my client's business. This would put them out of business. This is really an issue of fundamental fairness in the end. I appreciate the pressure that zoning board members are under. I represent a number of municipalities myself, a number of them that aren't all that different from Chelmsford. We represent Shrewsbury, Bolton, Granite, Holden, and a whole host of other communities that I've worked for as well. But that does not change the fact that this is an arbitrary and unfair, illegal, and inaccurate enforcement order, again, for a use that has been going on for many years. Again, against only one of several commercial and industrial users of Ledge Road, and on an issue that was previously litigated and resolved. So to close, Newport's operation now would effectively be nothing short of a taking. It would put us out of business, and the town cannot and the board should not regulate this company out of business, as well as, if you take the enforcement order to its logical conclusion, the other commercial businesses that are operating and using Ledge Road. So on that basis and on those bases, we're asking that the board overturn the enforcement order, and allow us to continue doing business. I'm happy to answer any questions that the board has.
I have a Brian.
Oh, certainly, John.
In the beginning of your speech there, you said that the traffic studies are not relevant. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, the traffic studies suggesting that, that there is a dramatic increase in the traffic on Ledge Road are not relevant in the sense that they don't make any attempt to distinguish between the traffic that's being generated by customers of Newport and the other users, and that the increase alone is not is arbitrary in the sense that it only starts looking at 2017, and we don't think that that's an appropriate starting point for operations that have been in place for over 100 years.
So you want to start it back at 1912?
No, I'm saying that under Lapanus and all those other cases, the volume of traffic is not relevant to the issues before this board. Again, this was an issue that was litigated by the town in the 2016 and 2017 cases, and we don't think that it can be relitigated.
I think
Now-
that's the only thing we're talking about.
5 years of traffic analysis is not relevant. I understand your point that they did not distinguish between Newport and the other companies. I definitely understand that point, but not validating that the fact that the traffic increased almost doubled in 5 years is, you don't consider that to be a valid point in and of itself?
I don't think it's relevant to the legal issues that are before the board.
Okay.
If I could, I'm gonna ask Jose to expand a little on his letter and what his conclusions were. I understand as best I can your point, and I think that a little clarity is necessary to balance this out. So that's what I think we'll go now, and we may certainly have further questions for you.
Sure. Thank you
I would
very
just
much.
like to ask Jose if he could explain a little about why he felt this enforcement order was necessary and
Chairman, Mr.
legal,
Chairman,
of course.
prior to September 9, the Ledge Road situation came to my attention through the previous town council. And based on the traffic study and the drones study and the data that I received, and based on the district and the historical aspect of the road, under the guidance of the new town council in KP Law, I drafted the letter, and we thought that the non-conforming use of the business has increased based on my judgment on on all the data provided to me to review.
Traffic study and observations. So I think one of the points the attorney made was that you've concentrated this on Newport materials as opposed to Graves and LeMagerie and Gilmet, I think, was the other one there. Was there a logic to that you could clarify?
I brought that to the attention of town council, and I was advised to just send it to this Granite
Mr. McKay?
Yeah.
Or Newport?
Newport.
Is you said the private use portion of Ledge, is the whole road considered private use road?
I believe 193 feet are considered private road.
And is that the part right to the Westford perimeter, or is that the part at the tail end going up to Dunstable?
I think it's right out.
Where it actually forks in the road?
Yeah.
Is that the location
So
where?
you're not speaking
private road begins.
not that parcel that
No.
he's referring to, you're not referring to that parcel there?
I believe it's the first from Groton Road to where the 190 feet ends,
To the parcel?
right from that point.
Can I clarify that?
Yeah, I'm a little, yes, please do.
I think it's slide, the aerial.
I mean, I guess we're not really working, I saw a single plan that looks like it was stamped by a surveyor, but we're working from town maps and uncertified roadways here at this point.
So, no.
Is this the one you wanna
next,
look
It's
at?
the aerial photo
The
slide.
aerial.
And there is a plan, I'll come back to that in a moment. Okay, so this is the plan
Okay.
here. This is the portion of Ledge Road that I think we're talking about. And this is, this is part of the Gilmet parcel that I was speaking of before.
Do you agree with that? Is that what you see as the private portion?
I can't see clearly from here, but based on the data I got from other towns departments, it appears that the 193 feet begins right on Rotten Road and they end wherever they're gonna end into Ledge Road.
So it's,
So right as you turn off the main road, if you will.
Yes, sir.
The 190 feet, which is not, I think, what you're referring to. Are we looking at two different sections of roadway?
it sounds like it.
I couldn't tell from the enforcement order. The enforcement order doesn't actually specify where they're talking about. To my knowledge, all of the the vast majority of all the homes are further down to where Ledge Road connects with, I think it's Dunstable.
Dunstable Road.
Yeah, Dunstable.
Right, it is.
That
Dunstable.
So
portion
I
is
bring it
all
here.
public.
This
That's
is
a public
Chelmsford.
road.
This is Chelmsford.
The only
That's
portion
Chelmsford.
that's not public is the dirt portion, right, the dirt portion of the road.
I pay taxes
That's-
on it.
That's the parcel, the Gilmet parcel.
Ask them to stop
I think that's what we're talking about, is the private portion of Ledge
Road.
Road.
Yeah, just, excuse me, we're going to open this up to public comment, and anyone that has,
Can't help it, this is ridiculous.
do your best. We're not going to get any further with interruptions. I understand your frustration, I do. I just think if we can hold it down until it's your time to speak, it will be much more efficient for everyone. I'm not trying to single someone out. So, is your enforcement order not the response that the attorney is saying? Are we in two different areas?
I'm gonna ask town council to respond on that matter.
So, yeah, I don't know the exact amount of the roadway that's private, but I think what Jose started to reference, which is really the important legal point, is whether or not the use of whatever that private portion of the roadway is has significantly expanded since Newport started their operations. Because if so, then that would require relief from this board in the form of a special permit, Section 6 finding, as an expansion of a pre-existing non-conforming use. Admittedly, the enforcement order doesn't explicitly reference that, but I think this board does have the authority to weigh that issue.
So, we're not going to issue a special permit here tonight.
They haven't applied for that.
Right, so we're just an administrative review of the building inspector's letter.
Right,
Okay.
right.
So regardless of where that 190 feet is it in between Dunstable Road and the group of quarries in question?
Westford Town.
Such that
Westford
the
Town line.
trucks would have to go on that 190-foot stretch to leave the quarries to get to Dunstable Road.
That's correct.
So we all agree on,
That's correct.
so at some point, the trucks would be on that private section of the road.
So it's
during their-
it's between that parcel and the Westford line.
Correct.
Okay.
May I comment on the non-conforming issue? Because I heard that raised, and town council pointed out that that's not referenced in the enforcement order. And I can't emphasize enough how fatal that is to the enforcement order. The enforcement order doesn't suggest that the use is a pre-existing non-conforming use and therefore is entitled to benefits under the town of Chelmsford zoning bylaw. The enforcement order also doesn't suggest that Newport needs to apply for a Section 6 finding to expand a non-conforming use. It's our position that the enforcement order, actually, I take that back. It's not our position. The enforcement order is black and white. It says that the use is prohibited. Doesn't suggest that Newport has the benefit of some of the protections as a pre-existing non-conforming use and that they are limited to some number of trucks or some quality or character of use. It says it's not permitted entirely. So in my view, the legal issue before the board is, was that proper or not? This is not a non-conforming use issue as the enforcement order was written up. In our view, there are several reasons, legal reasons, factual reasons, a multitude of reasons that this enforcement order, as it's been drafted, is arbitrary, capricious, it's illegal, and it's based on a number of factual errors that simply make it unsustainable. It's written as if Newport is the only person that's using this commercial road for commercial purposes, and we just know that that's not the case. And it's the building commissioner's burden to establish that there is a zoning violation. And now the goalpost is getting moved. Apparently we're not a prohibited use, I guess. We're now a non-conforming use, but I think we're protected regardless. And because of all the legal reasons that I mentioned before, Lapanus protects this use, as do a number of other legal doctrines, and this use has been going on for a long time.
Can I ask, Counselor? So whether whether the building commissioner verbalized it as prohibited or protected with a special permit because it's non-conforming, in either way, they're currently using it illegally under bylaws. So would the verbiage matter either way, however he written
I think I'd
it?
step back and say, at the outset, it is an unlawful use under Chelmsford's bylaw.
Okay, whether he could get protection under 6 for a special permit or not, either way, it's illegal
Well,
currently.
Hold on. Currently, it is a prohibited use. Commercial use is prohibited in the RB zoning district in Chelmsford. If the applicant has convinced the board that historically there has been a use of this portion of the road for access for the gravel mine, then the board could determine that the applicant has established there's a pre-existing non-conforming use. Then the question becomes, has that use expanded since Newport took over in a way that would require further relief from this board in the form of a special permit?
I guess I there must be something I'm missing because the land is in Westford.
Yep.
Why would the use of trucks driving over that land be considered a prohibited use?
The roads.
So in Westford, it's an allowed use under the Westford bylaw.
Yep.
But the private portion of the Ledge Road is in Chelmsford and therefore regulated under Chelmsford zoning bylaw.
Okay.
And under the Chelmsford bylaw, that private portion of the way is in the residential B zoning district.
Mm-hmm.
So commercial gravel mining is not allowed in the RB zoning district.
But how? The use is not allowed, but the trucks are not the use.
They're part of the use.
They are part of the use.
Because they're carrying products from a mining operation,
Yes.
they cannot do that on a private road.
Well, that depends on what the board decides in terms of, has the applicant convinced you that they're historically, the determination of whether or not the applicant has established that there's been a pre-existing non-conforming use of the private portion of Ledge Road depends on, that's for the board to decide. If the applicant has convinced you that the predecessors of Newport had a similar mining operation and Newport took over, and therefore Newport is entitled to some pre-existing non-conforming use of the road, the board has the authority to determine that. But then if the board determines Newport has met that burden of proving that there is a pre-existing non-conforming use, the question is then, has that use expanded significantly since Newport took over? And if the answer is yes, then they would require relief from this board in the form of a special permit, because that would be an expansion of a pre-existing non-conforming use.
Has a permit ever been issued to use that road from the town of Chelmsford? Yeah, is there any historical where it says trucks can travel down there.
Not
So
that I'm
there's been
aware
no
of.
permit issued ever.
Not that I'm aware of, other than the building permits that council referenced.
And the gravel.
But there's no permits
Solid.
I'm aware of for,
Or special permits
The
or anything like
actual
that.
road
That's my,
itself.
just, so,
Mr. Chairman, may I address that? Because
If you
That's
can,
actually
that would be,
incorrect.
clarifying.
in addition to the building permits, and these are included in our, as attachments to our memo, exhibits I and I believe J. Exhibit I is a 1949 permit issued by the then, or not a building permit, excuse me, is a permit issued by this board, the Board of Appeals, in 1949 on Gilmette's application at 57 Ledge Road. That's the address that we're talking about right now. For the sale of sand, the permit was to be granted under,
To sell sand,
To s-
not to use the road.
but that is a commercial use, selling sand. And then the next exhibit, second page of that same exhibit is another permit to Gilmette in 1949
To renew the use of
for
sand.
a sand pit on the property
Renewing
at
to sell
at,
sand.
57 Ledge Road. In 1950, there was a permit to erect a building for the manufacturing of cement blocks and all incidental articles in connection with this type of business for the property at 57 Ledge Road. In 1953, there was a permit issued for the manufacturing of concrete products at 57 Ledge Road. So there's been a lot of permits, and that was sort of part of my point, that the private portion of Ledge Road, which is 57 Ledge Road, that's where this private portion of the road is located, has been in long-term commercial use going back to the 50s and is still in commercial use today, not only by the Gilmettes, but also by these other companies and operations that I mentioned as well. And if I can address just one other issue, going back to this non-conforming use issue, you only get to the non-conforming use issue if we're wrong on the other 4 legal arguments that we put before you, including Lapanus, Latches, the settlement agreement that the town is prohibited from relitigating these access issues. You only get to the non-conforming issue if Newport loses on all those. And I don't think that the building inspector has shown, and I haven't seen any evidence in the record that suggests that Lapanus is wrong or that it doesn't apply in this instance. I think that and the other legal arguments that we mentioned prohibit the town from prohibiting the use. And again, this was not an enforcement order that suggested that this was a non-conforming use, and the building inspector has not established that. This is a legally protected use. It's not an illegal use, notwithstanding the fact that the private portion of Ledge Road is located in the residential district. It was previously a commercial district, and it has remained in commercial use for many years.
Can I ask, when did Newport start operating in that area?
2017. Before that, it was operated by the LeMasures, and there was also a company called Roma Stone that was doing manufactured earth materials, sand, gravel, rock crushing,
So that's-
asphalt recycling, and things of that nature,
So
going
that's
back
where
to
it-
the
okay.
1970s.
I guess that's where the 2017 traffic study to 2022 traffic, now that kind of
Danny's had a
understands.
question.
Why is it that the applicant's the only one that got the enforcement?
Well, the 2017,
Yeah.
they started in 2017.
But
traffic
by the traffic study, we don't actually know it's.
You're right, and then that's a
And-
question that
no, and it's
he already
it's an
said.
inference that you would have to make.
Yeah,
Why is that?
I still feel.
Why are they different from the other 3
Exactly.
in that inference?
Well, it would depend on whether or not you believe that when Newport took over, that, they expanded at that point. And that expansion is what's reflected in the increased amount of traffic.
But one could also say the other 3 have been more successful in the past
year.
7 years or whatever, and are cranking out more landfill or whatever. I
Look
don't
at
know.
revenue records to see if their sales and profit revenue
And if
increased.
we were to actually enforce, uphold this, all those other companies would have to stop.
Well, only if the building commissioner were to issue an order to them as well.
But how does that work? All the same uses do the exact same thing. We only put it on one property. All the same uses are still using the same road.
Well, I think you should listen to some of the residents and hear about whether there's a difference between pre-2017 versus after.
I was gonna ask for that, public, we need to
Here,
hear from the
yeah.
public. now
I think we
at
can
this point.
step into that forum.
Mr.
I
Chairman,
did
can I-
want to understand, I know you had said that the north scale is part of the Graves operation,
That's correct.
but there's another scale up there. Can I ask when that was installed? And I believe that is Newport's scale.
I'm going to guess that was installed in 2017.
So as far as
What?
Wade access.
Actually, I take that back. I don't know if that's the case or not, because Roma Stone was operating there since the 1970s, and I presume they had a scale as well, just because that's how those operations work. And they would have. It may be that Newport took over what was then had been the Roma Stone scale. So I probably shouldn't.
We're speculating on.
Yeah, I am speculating a little bit. And
I
speaking
think
of
at this point,
speculation,
I think the audience has been very patient. I'm going to let them speak to their concerns and try to get some understanding of what
Ask
has happened since.
One more before we go to the audience.
Absolutely.
The traffic studies that have been done suggest that there's an increase in traffic. Is there any way that that can be correlated to the trucks from any one or all of the, like, there's nothing that says, like, these trucks had these license plates or these stickers. It's just there's more vehicles, and it doesn't necessarily say that they were trucks. It's just vehicles, correct?
Correct at this point.
Okay.
I am fairly familiar with the site, and I can tell you that a lot of the truckers that are coming through here are independent contractors. They very well may deliver something to Newport and pick up something at Graves in the very same trip. I'm not saying they do or they don't, but it's very likely because they're independent. I'm sure Newport has its own views, but a lot of this work is done by independent contractors with their own trucks, and they may well go to all three places in a single day.
Okay.
I don't suggest they do or they don't. I'm not.
It's just a possibility.
The way it is, it's very likely that
Okay.
if you need a stone that Newport is manufacturing, you would go get it there. If you needed a stone or wanted to dump an asphalt product at Graves, it's the same road. Goes up
They don't,
and
they
literally
don't
does
access
this.
they don't access the asphalt from Ledge, is that correct?
Well,
the asphalt
Wrap is a
plant
bit of a
is not
different product.
accessed from Ledge Road.
Okay.
But both Newport Aggregates and Graves sell and process recycled asphalt materials. So, for example, and I believe the town of Chelmsford is one of those customers. When they're repaving a road, they dig up the old asphalt and they bring it to Aggregates and they dump it
Gotcha.
and leave it there.
Gotcha.
And either Graves or Newport will process that material.
Okay.
You touched briefly when you started your presentation that there's a road that goes from the north scale out to Route 40, Westford. Was that Ward? Is that the name of it? Why can't you use that?
For a number of reasons. One is I referenced Ward Road and one other road. Neither one of those are open for access purposes for the kinds of vehicles that are coming in on Ledge Road. And let me just clarify that.
Be
Mr.
brief.
Chairman. So,
Turn it on us.
there is an internal access road that goes in between the asphalt plant and to the Newport operation to the
Right.
north. Customers coming in to either one of those sites do not access. Asphalt customers do not come in through Ledge Road, and they are not using Ledge Road as a way to come in and then go down into the asphalt operation. And the reason for that is the trucks that you see on Ledge Road are road trucks. The road that is in between the asphalt materials site and the Newport aggregate site is an internal access road that's not built to withstand that kind of traffic. And that's why it's not used for that purpose. The trucks that do go in between the two are different kinds of trucks that are basically able to travel on quarrying type roads. They're not for public roads. So that's not an appropriate access. And also, we would need permission from the town of Westford, which we don't have, and which was the subject of the prior litigation, to not only build that road that you're talking about, but also to use Route 40 as a way for those vehicles to travel. The other aspect of your question that you raised was Ward Road, and one of the other possibilities that the town looked into in the feasibility study, and both of those were ruled out for similar reasons, because it would require permits from Westford, and because those roads aren't currently built and connecting to the operation that Newport has off of Ledge Road.
And I have one more, if I may.
Absolutely.
An observation coupled with a question. I spent a lot of time in this neighborhood. In fact, I used to go up and down Swain Road twice or thrice a day. You mentioned reasonable or fair use several times in your presentation. When I travel that road, I see trucks that I can't tell. I don't have a speed gun. They don't seem to be traveling the speed limit. And there's an awful lot of aggregate that drops out of the trucks, falls behind. If I was behind one truck that didn't even have its canvas cover over it. Now, how about some kind of, I know Newport's been asked in a friendly kind of way by the select board to, kind of be a good neighbor and watch for that. But where is that cooperation? I'm not, I see an attempt at it, but not every day.
And the traffic study does this.
Mr. DeFelice is happy to address that issue. Speak to that.
Morning, good evening, Richard DeFelice, Newport. So to answer you directly, our site has numerous times, and to the chairman's suggestion, they're third-party lease drivers for the most part that are on the site, like you mentioned. They're not Newport employees, they're not Newport trucks. My control over third-party companies obviously is limited. However, I can tell you, and everyone on my site knows, if there's a trucker that speeds out of our site, leaves uncovered, they're not allowed back on my site. I can't speak to the other operations in the area. I don't control, Graves, I don't control them. But, for the trucks that leave my site, they know, because we have a zero tolerance policy, because we do respect the neighbors, despite, I think, the comments that I'm hearing. I do just want to say one other thing, because I've heard some comments behind me. I just want to state for the record, asphalt trucks unequivocally do not go through the internal roadway. It's not built for it. We don't allow it. I would never violate the Westford settlement agreement that we have. Any trucks that do go through the internal roadway, I'm allowed to do it. Per my settlement agreement, I can have trucks go through for manufacturing purposes from my quarry to my asphalt plant. The trucks that do go through, 90% of them are articulating rock trucks, because, as Attorney McKay said, you can't have triaxle dump trucks on this roadway. I don't know if you've visited the site. It's a narrow one-way dirt roadway through the woods, through conservation land that was built specifically for the purpose of our rock trucks going through the site from the quarry to the asphalt plant. So not only logistically could I not do it, I would never have, random paving companies driving through the conservation land on a one-way dirt road. It doesn't happen. So
What's to prevent you from improving it yourself? Isn't it your property?
The major one is my Westford settlement agreement. I can't, and I would never violate that. First of all. Second of all, the roadway that is there was built in unison with the conservation the wetlands, everything, it's all laid out specifically for this purpose, so I can't. It's surrounded by wetlands on both sides. But again, to the bigger point, I would never violate my settlement agreement with the town of Westford. It's not worth it to me. I don't need to, because the vehicle limitations I have on my asphalt plant, Newport is the one that gave that number to the town, because it's what we can work with. So that's why. Any other questions for me before on operations or anything? And I do just want to say for the record too, we bought the quarry in 2017. However, Graves next to us does roughly the same business we do. If you're going to take both, those are the two largest companies on the parcel. We're probably 50-50 split between what we do and what they do. And all I can tell you is in the last, 7-8 years, they've expanded as well. So not only, both operations have expanded. So to single us out, it's just not accurate. Anything else? Thank you.
Unless there's further questions, I'm going to open this up to the audience and let speak in favor or in opposition if you'd like to. If you wouldn't mind forming a queue behind the podium. Ask for your
Thank you,
name and
members of the
address
board.
when you speak. And we will,
Can we have the people who speak in favor go first?
We got jokes tonight.
Good evening, and thank you for providing us with the opportunity.
your name and address, sir?
I'm sorry. My name is Everett Olson Jr. I am a lifelong resident of North Chelmsford, 76 years. A resident
The
of
address?
North
The actual
Chelmsford.
address. This is for the record, sir, not to give you a hard time.
140 Groton Road. I'm not sure if it's possible to navigate this map to where my wife and I live, which is at the intersection of Route 40 and Swain Road, right at ground zero where the trucks turn onto Swain Road and come out of Swain Road.
140 Groton.
140?
140 Groton.
140 Groton Road.
There he is.
This is our home, right here. I grew up here. So I've been in this same neighborhood for 75 of my 76 years in this town. Growing up here, living for the last 40 plus years here. The trucks that we're talking about, and I will give you in this phone all the traffic study information you need. I've got hundreds and hundreds of pictures and videos of unending truck traffic that starts here at 5:30, 5:45 in the morning and continues until late in the afternoon. Unending. This is not a truck traffic situation where there is 10, 15, 20 minutes between vehicles. Oftentimes during the day, there are 3 to 5 minutes between either an individual truck, a 10 to 22 wheeled vehicle, 3 to 6 axles, that are trying to navigate a residential neighborhood. And I'm not only talking about Route 40. I'm talking about our friends also on Swain Road, Dunstable Road, and Ledge Road. All my life, when LeMaisry and Guillemets were operating these quarrying functions, we never saw the truck traffic. If we saw 1 or 2 a day, that was the norm. It wasn't until Newport began its operations, and I'm familiar with all this because I was the superintendent of schools in Westford when this agreement was negotiated with the town of Westford. I've since retired from there. But these trucks start at 5:30 to 5:45. They go all day, 6 days a week. We've once in a great while seen trucks on a Sunday, but mostly Monday through Saturday. All right. What has happened is our residential neighborhoods have been turned into heavy industrial neighborhoods. I've presented you a document that I drafted. What we've experienced, and I've put some pictures in there also. And I've got hundreds more to document what I'm saying to you. We've endured stone spills on the roads. We've seen the street sweeper in North Chelmsford more in the last 6 months than we have in the last 6 years because of the stone spilled on our roads. One of the pictures I've presented to you is that stone. Tell me that a young family pushing a baby carriage, somebody trying to walk, or somebody trying to jog can navigate the roadways with that stone spilled. You have a picture in there of a young child with a school backpack trying to navigate through trucks at the intersection of Route 40 and Swain Road. You have a number of pictures in there showing multiple trucks. A lot of them stop on the side of the roads or at the Triangle Store. Triangle Store has been a long-standing business in North Chelmsford. I've lived there my entire life, virtually across the street from it. But what they do is they stack up along Route 40, coming eastbound, such that motorists coming down Route 40, Main Street, to the stop sign near my house, cannot see oncoming traffic from Route 40. Truck after truck. They pull over to the side of the road occasionally and will idle for 15, 20 minutes, sometimes for 30 to 35 minutes at a time. We have endured loud squealing brakes all day long, unending exhaust fumes and dust. We can't open our windows in the summer. We can't have any outside activities in our yard in the summer because of the truck traffic and the noise associated with it. We've tried to meet with people outside, window contractors, whatnot. We've had to move inside the house because of the noise of the trucks. Upshifting, the downshifting. They have been overwhelming our residential neighborhoods, and it was never, never like this as a person who has lived there my entire life. All right? You know, we've been complaining about this for the last several years. We've been told that there was a grandfather clause to allow a non-conforming use. Well, nobody has been able to find any grandfather clause. Nothing in writing, nothing codified in the minutes of any meeting minutes, going back how many years or decades. So from my perspective, and I'm not a lawyer, but from my perspective, in my line of work as a school official, if it wasn't in writing, then it wasn't in existence. We've also been told that, well, we had a grandfather clause in place for the operations. Well, those operations were probably 1/40th to 1/50th of what the scale of operations are now, because of the level of truck traffic that existed back then. And once again, I've been there my entire life. And the amount of truck traffic that happens now and has been happening for the last several years. You know, we talked about wanting to be a good neighbor, trying to be a good neighbor. I haven't seen one thing that has represented being a good neighbor. I understand these gentlemen are in business to make money, but not at the expense, the health, the safety, and well-being of the residents of North Chelmsford, particularly on Groton Road, Swain Road, Dunstable Road, and Ledge Road. It is unending and intolerable. Now, with respect to any regulation that might be placed on Newport or any other business, you know, sometimes we were told that a special permit for a non-conforming use is irrevocable. Well, in the case of the town of Hempstead, New York, against Goldblatt Company, which I've referenced in my document, goes back to 1962. The town of Hempstead issued regulations because the Goldblatt Company was beginning to, and that's an excavation, that was an excavation company, was beginning to receive, in the town of Hempstead, complaints about health and safety and well-being concerns of residents. So they essentially issued some regulations similar to, and I want to thank you for issuing the cease and desist order, essentially did the same thing in terms of imposing some regulations on Goldblatt. Goldblatt took the town of Hempstead to court. It went to the United States Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said that a local municipality has the ability to regulate a business if it's impacting the health, safety, and well-being of a community. I want to make reference to something I put in my letter also. You know, we talked about traffic studies, and this is very concerning. Back in the summer of 2023, just a year and a half ago, there was an aerial surveillance study done. I don't have the cover letter to that study, but it was done with this town, and a town official was involved. And part of that report, it says, I want to note that the town of Chelmsford conducted an aerial surveillance of truck traffic in the summer of 2023, during which the author of this report and a town official observed what they believed to be intentional aerial obstruction of surveillance, leading to the conclusion below, which is, and I quote, "It is also conclusive that all recorded obstructions during the surveillance period indicate that the volume of truck traffic on Ledge Road is considerably more," and they emphasized the word more in that report, "than the average daily totals that we have visualized." This has to come to an end. I'm asking you, as representatives of this town, the Zoning Board of Appeals, to please uphold the cease and desist order. We should not have to live day in and day out, year in and year out, with trucks that are passing our houses every 3 to 5 minutes. That is not an exaggeration. If you would like to come sit in our driveway, my wife and I would love to have you sit there for an entire day, for an entire week, for an entire month, and see what we are observing and experiencing in terms of rock spills, upshifting, downshifting, sometimes horns blasting, screeching brakes all day long, and traffic conditions that are unsafe in our residential neighborhoods. I don't want to keep going on, but you know, one of the concerns also is Newport, and I'm not sure whether it's the asphalt or the aggregate operation, has been sold apparently to Vinci Corporation, a multi-conglomerate global in over 120 countries. Their business operations state, we're looking forward to the purchase of Newport to step up its road operations in North America. Needs more asphalt, means more aggregate. It's only going to get worse. No, none of you, no one else in this entire town wants to be living day in and day out with this nonsense that we have had to bear in terms of unending noise. Can't open our windows. Can't have a conversation. Can't have any function outside because of the damn trucks that don't stop. All right? And I thank you. As you can tell, I'm quite passionate about this because, as I said, 75 of my 76 years have been spent there. And I've never seen anything like it in my life. And it has to stop. And I thank you very much.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
May I ask a question, please?
Sure.
You said, you acknowledge they're in business to make money. I'm sure you harbor no personal ill will to the owners. How can we help you without hurting them?
My feeling is this is a matter between Newport and the town of Westford, that you have the sovereign right to impose this cease and desist order. Let them work it out with the town of Westford. As I said, I worked there for 35 years, mostly as the superintendent of schools, and I remember the negotiations. It's a matter of the town of Westford that just doesn't want the inconvenience of all the trucks. Give it to Chelmsford, okay? That's been the philosophy. There was if you notice Newport asphalt, there is a requirement that all truck traffic turn left. Mm-hmm. Coming east to North Chelmsford. I checked with the town of Westford about 5 months ago, and to everyone's knowledge, that requires going onto a state, either entering onto or off of a state roadway, requires state approval, DOP approval. No one in the town of Westford could verify that there was any approval that was requiring all of those trucks and forcing them not to go into Westford, but to come into North Chelmsford. Those are the games that have been played. So that, to answer, and I don't mean to be quite blunt, but to answer your question, this is not a North Chelmsford problem. They pay their taxes into Westford. I verified that. We have the ability in this town to uphold and to issue that cease and desist order.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, good evening. Laura Rogers Amundsen. I own the property on 2 Swain Oak Road. So I'm right at ground zero. I am Mr. Olson's neighbor across the street. I know exactly what he's talking about, and he said it so eloquently and so passionately. I also grew up in Chelmsford. I moved away for a while, and I bought a house to come back to raise my children here in a safe manner in the way that I brought up, and I was thrilled to move back to Chelmsford. So my husband and I just found it so wonderful that we were able to buy this property. We bought our property in 2019. We only saw it on a Sunday. We didn't see these trucks, all right? Purchase and sale is signed on a Tuesday. That's pretty different. Our children were little when we bought this property. I have not wanted them in the front yard. It's too dangerous. We can't hold a conversation in the backyard. My 86-year-old mother says, hey, can we sit outside in the back? She cannot hear because it literally sounds like we're on 495. There's so many trucks. It's also remarkably dangerous to back out of our driveway. And if you look out our front window, we're not on the corner, we're one over. These trucks are lined 5 deep. 18-wheelers on a residential street in Chelmsford. Who would have thought? It feels like we're living in a nightmare. We can't, we have to be very careful with our dog. We have to be careful with our children. We don't walk on that road. We can't have certain conversations, even in the front of our house. I would be on a conference call. I can't hear my conference call. It's that loud. It's like I'm working in a quarry. It's very, very inefficient too. Why can't they just take a left, whatever deal they made with Westford? It's very easy to come out of the front. We're talking all about fairness. It's going out of the back road. It's ruining Ledge Road. It's ruining, this is hundreds of houses. It just makes no sense to me. It's not fair. It's not right. It's dangerous. I feel when I back out of my driveway, I could be killed. It's bad. When they come, trucks too big, think of 18-wheelers on the same road, coming at each other like this, going around a corner. You want to back out into that? I mean, I better love Chelmsford because I don't know if I'll ever be able to sell that house. Because anybody, unless I sell it on a Tuesday, which was what was done to me, because it is just, it's unfair and it just seems so inefficient. Why on earth is this our problem? This is in Westford. They can go out the front. If they made a deal with Westford, reevaluate that. Don't put it on our shoulders. We might not be a big business. We might not be attorneys, but we matter. And I know Representative Elliott has been wonderful championing this for us. So I just said my piece, and I thank you.
Can I ask, how long have you lived at that
So
house?
we bought that house in 2019.
Okay.
Yeah. And wow, like, it's not just a little. Like, it's, when you look at our front window, I don't know if.
Have you seen an increase since you've been there? Or has it been pretty?
It's just been so, it's been so horrific the whole time that it's just, I remember I was like this is a lot of trucks. But when something's so awful, can it get more awful? If something's awful, you're like, this is terrible. It's not even as bad as what they're going through on Ledge Road. I cannot even imagine it. But it's not the Chelmsford I grew up in. And Chelmsford's been a fair town. And I think what's been done to us and done to Chelmsford is unfair. So we appreciate you trying to rectify this.
Can you discern which companies are driving?
I've seen like Newport, we're talking like 18-wheelers.
Yeah.
I've seen Newport on the top, rocks coming out. I've seen a lot of dump trucks. Some have names, some don't, but I definitely have seen Newport. It's that huge, you guys all know this, right? It is so long. It's like from your desk, like 2 curtains past that. It's just crazy long, and then you'll have a dump truck behind that and another truck, and they'll all speed because they're coming out of Ledge, they're going on the right, they're banging the right on Swain. They're going as fast as they can because it's inefficient for them, right? They should be able to go out the front, hop on the highway, and be on their business. So they're trying to make up their time. They must not like this either. It's lunacy to have to do this like crazy roundabout through a commercial neighborhood. And then, they probably have to like move over and be like, oh, because you see people trying to walk dogs, kids, babies. Yeah. We had the bus stop for our children. They're my stepkids, they're my husband's children. They get picked up at their bus at their mother's house because I will not have them walking on that road. It's not worth it. Does somebody have to get killed? Do we have to have a tragedy to like fix this? It's just not Chelmsford. It's not fair. Any other questions?
Do you have any recollection of the time of these trucks? The other gentleman
Oh my
said?
goodness. So it's crazy. Honestly, I recall waking up being like, boom, what is that? Is that an earthquake? 5:30 in the morning. I'm like, isn't there supposed to be some type of ordinance? One time my husband went out to check something in the driveway. It was like 4 o'clock in the morning. I mean, I don't know if that's been recent, but this has been over all these years. And you know what? Fair is fair. It should be never. This is a regular residential road in Chelmsford. It just, why is a company in Westford who they have a front door to go out? Like if you had a party, would you say only a limited amount of people can go out that front door? Everybody else has to go out the back. Oh, the party's just overgrown. Now everybody's here. That's kind of what's happening. And I'm sorry to put in like a Rodney Dangerfield type of way, but it feels like nonsensical and like lunacy that we're in this weird predicament. So we respect your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I just want to ask one question.
Good evening, and
What are your hours of operation on the aggregate side?
Oh, I'm sorry, what?
No.
I'm asking the gentleman what their hours were.
Yeah, I mean, not 4 in the morning. You're generally, you'll have employees on site at 6 o'clock hour.
No.
Okay, they know more about my business than I do apparently.
I'm asking you.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, so that's.
We'll stick with talking to the chairman,
So
please.
Newport specifically, we're done pretty much before 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So you'll run between, say, 6:30, 7 o'clock a.m. with traffic coming in through about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We don't work at night. We don't work on Sundays. I mean, we could, but we don't. We try to limit to normal working hours so that our neighbors aren't, hearing them on Sundays and overnight. But that's.
Thank you.
So 6:30 is when your employees show up or when the trucks show up, or both?
6 depends on the day. 6 o'clock hour, our employees will show up on the site. I mean, I don't have a.
Which, just to be clear, that would be a normal pickup truck just to arrive to work.
Yeah.
As opposed to trucks that load.
But like trucks who are coming in to be loaded could show up as early as what?
I would tell you in the 6 o'clock hour.
Okay.
Will show up.
Okay.
Comments?
5 o'clock, sometimes it's earlier than that, mostly between 5 and 5:30.
And I appreciate you said, but one, I will tell you that we really don't know that their trucks are the trucks you're referring to. I know where you live. I know where Ledge Road is. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying that, I'm trying to understand what their hours of operation are I'm certain there's guys that get there early. I'm certain there's guys that get there and may go to Graves or LeMay or some entirely different way and be on that roadway. I can't speak to any of that.
Mr. Chair.
Sir, just one other comment. We do not stack any trucks on the roads. Obviously, you've seen the aerials. We don't need to, but none of Newport-related trucks are stacked on any public roadway. So I just want to make that very clear.
Thank you. Sorry for the interruption, sir. I just wanted to get that organized. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing okay.
Good.
My name is Valentine Pager. My wife Terry and myself, we live at 38 Ledge Road. We haven't been there 5 years. We've been there over 30 years, as most of the residents on Ledge Road have been, contrary to what was stated earlier, that many of them have only gotten there in 5 years. So I just want to clarify a couple of things. Secondly, the trucks do begin at 5 to 5:30 in the morning. The traffic counts support it, and my house is only 30 feet from the road. So I can support it. All right. Now, are they going to Newport? Are they going to Graves? Are they going to LeMaisry? I don't know that, but Jose, you referenced an aerial survey. Do you have that survey that we can see? From what I read about it, what I heard about it, was that it very clearly shows that the majority of the trucks, it didn't count all the trucks as it said, there were some challenges with it, but that the vast majority of the trucks were going to Newport. Is that true? Can you show that to us?
I know are you talking about the
aerial survey?
The aerial. I will consult with town council. I believe you probably need to apply for a FOIA request in order for him to have the video. But I believe it's available. So reach out to me tomorrow.
Okay.
Send me an email, and I'll further guide you on how to obtain if that's
Okay,
feasible.
because I think there's a lot of questions, right? Everybody's got questions. Let's take, if there's video, let's take a look at it. Let's put it in the record, and let's help help that inform the decisions that are made here. But I want to back up. I wanted to, because of the discussion, every discussion seems to go to who is it, where are their trucks going. So my wife and I raised 5 children on Ledge Road. We've been there, as I said, since 1991. Yes, there have been trucks there all along. Yes, they've been traveling Ledge Road. There was probably, I would estimate, somewhere in the range of 60 to 70 trucks a day coming up and down the road. That's an estimate, okay?
What
But
year are you making that estimate for?
what year?
You
Back
said
in the 90s.
Okay.
Back in the 90s. So when we were raising our children, we even know that the children knew the truck drivers. Okay? We even had occasions where a truck driver would stop his truck and say, hey, your little kid's out front. And that's not a good place, right? So they were good neighbors, all the quarries, the Gilmats especially, Roma Stone, LeMaisry, Graves, all of them, good neighbors. Did not drive on our front lawns, did not dig furrows in property that's wooded land that belongs to the neighbors, okay? But because the road's not quite wide enough, let's just make it wider, okay? So you just drive until the furrows, come see them, are this tall because they've dug out the dirt and pushed it into the woods so they can have a wider road, because Ledge Road is really only made for cars, and of course they can't pass each other, and that's very inconvenient for them. Okay, some of them use their Jake brakes just cause, not because they need them. A truck traveling 15 to 20 miles an hour, which is what the majority of them do on Ledge Road now that we have the speed bumps, okay, they don't need Jake brakes. They can use the mechanical brakes, but they use them just to spite us. They just lay on them. Every speed bump, they got to lay on the Jake brakes. Morton in particular. So wherever Morton is going,
I don't know what it is.
he's a trucker, so maybe they're going to Graves, okay? He has to lay on his Jake brakes at every segment of the road, okay? And he's been doing it for years, and he won't stop doing it. The increase, you can surmise, and I believe the video will show, that the increase is due to Newport growing their business. Okay, that's fine. What I heard today was, and what I read in the documents, was that Newport entered an arrangement, a legal agreement with Westford, okay, that said, nope, even if you buy LeMaisry, it's even in the agreement, even if you buy LeMaisry, you can't take those trucks out through Westford. You have to take them out through Chelmsford. Read the agreement. They signed an agreement knowing that if they bought that quarry, they weren't going to be able to grow the business and drive it out Ledge Road without destroying the neighborhood. They did it anyway. Sorry, sir, you don't care about us. The fact that your business is growing and you're
Please
forcing
address the
those
board,
trucks.
sir.
I'm sorry?
Please
Yes.
address the board.
Chelmsford, okay, they're destroying the road, they're destroying our property. My neighbor across the street and myself have had to put up boulders to keep them off our lawns. And trucks have driven through the boulders and thrown them 4 feet into my front yard, just because they were in a hurry. It's very frustrating, it's very dangerous, and yes, you can draw the conclusion that it's Newport that has added the volume dramatically. And I ask you, I'll close with this, I ask you one thing. At what point in this good world is too many trucks too many? We're up to 300-400 truck trips a day. That's a couple of hundred trucks a day.
From 60 to 70, you're up to 300
Yeah,
or 400?
yeah. It's every.
And I'm not trying to be sarcastic. Have you counted?
Yes, I have cameras. Would you like me to send you the video?
No, I'm just asking for your
I do.
honest
I
opinion.
have
whether
cameras
you're
and I've sat and
physically
I've counted
over, I'm going to say an 8-hour period, or sounds like it's a little longer than that, a 10-hour period.
It's closer to 10 hours. It starts at 5:30. Now, it's not a lot at 5:30. It's probably a dozen trucks, and I think the traffic surveys support that. And there's probably a dozen trucks that travel through after 4 and into 7 o'clock at night. There's one truck in particular that travels every night at 7 o'clock at night. Just comes barreling down the road, dumps his load, and comes back out. So we're up to that. What's too much? Is it 700? Is it 800? Are we going to have to put up with 1,000? It's incredibly crazy. An agreement was signed with Westford where Westford knew exactly what they were doing. They said, nope, you buy that quarry, they're going to go out Ledge Road. And you're going to grow the business like you're growing the business, and good for them, but you're going to push it all out Ledge Road. And the community, those families, those children, be damned. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a tough act to follow, I guess, huh? Melissa Lauren, I actually own 2 houses on Ledge Road. I grew up there my entire life. Was born at 2 Oak Hill Road, own the property at 44 Ledge Road, and then I actually own the beginning of the property of the private way. My land goes into the private way, abuts the Gilmets, along with Shirley's, up to the quarry. So at the split at the V, the right-hand side is the private way. In Newport's defense, they're not the only quarry up there, right? And so while they're great and they do take responsibility, if I have a problem, like the trucks going over the yard and digging into the road, and I mean, I even texted one of them last week, and I'm like, I need you guys to bring down more boulders because they're 5 feet off the road into my yard. They're not the only quarry that's up there. It is Graves as well, right? So if we address this holistically, we need to look at both sides of it. Graves bought the Gilmet quarry. Newport bought LeMaisry's. LeMaisry's and the Gilmet quarry don't have trucks. They're not hauling fleet all day long in and out of there. It's Graves and Newport. And, with all due respect, Newport is the one that will raise their hand and help out if we need them and, take that extra action where Graves doesn't. But I think in the consensus of this cease and desist, it's not about their business and what they're doing. It's about the volume, the speed, the safety, the environment concerns that us as residents have. I'm in full support with my neighbors. I live on 5 acres of land and I can't even enjoy it. I have an in-ground pool. I can't go swimming during the day. I have to wait until after 5 o'clock because the noise is so loud and the infrastructure on the street, potholes are another issue, right? I'm writing a letter to Paul Cohen and the engineering, Christine, at least every 2 months, asking for the department to come up and fill all the potholes because it just keeps deteriorating and deteriorating. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a burst artery. How much can you take? And how many employees and resources are we going to continue to put into the infrastructure on the street where it is inhabitable to drive? Like, you're destroying your car, you're destroying your health going over that. You can't walk. You know, I have 2 small dogs. I try to take them out for walks during the day. I can't. I have to actually walk through the yard now, and just because I can't use the road. And, you know, in my neighbor's defense as well, this morning the truck started at 5 o'clock. It was 5:01 when I looked at my clock. I'm like, are you kidding me? So I know with the limit measuring agreement, when Newport bought limit measures, the hours were 6 to 6, right? That's when they were supposed to start. 6 is still kind of early to be running a commercial business up through a residential neighborhood. You know, but something needs to be done. I'm not asking to stop halt businesses, but if they're in a Westford area, this is a real Westford problem. And North Chelmsford needs to stop being the burden to taxpayers, to the residents, to the resources that we use to clean the streets, pick up the rocks, you know, take care of, fill the yards, you know, all the air quality stuff that's been going on. You know, we need to look at this as a holistic problem and not just a, you know, conforming, non-conforming issue. Questions, comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Susan Olson, and I live at 140 Groton Road. I won't repeat what my husband had to say earlier. Sorry? I do have a couple of, well, first a question, and this could be directed to anyone. Where is 90 Ledge Road? Is that in Westford or is that in Chelmsford?
I personally don't know, but Becky is going to look that up right now.
The reason I ask is because in a,
I think it's Westford.
I'm 79 and I'm the last one.
So it's Westford.
there, in many of the documents, especially even on the Newport website, it gives directions for the truckers on how to get to the aggregate plant on Ledge Road. And it says, enter your GPS, 90 Ledge Road, North Chelmsford. I never knew there was a 90 Ledge Road. And yet, there are other instances when 90 Ledge Road is listed as being in Westford. That's why I ask, just to...
I'm curious whether they're just not outsmarting GPS.
I
don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
So when you type in the GPS, 90 Ledge Road does show up as North Chelmsford.
Sir, I can answer that. So when we acquired the quarry, that's the address Roma Stone was using for their customers to access, because GPS, like you said, wasn't reading that area properly, so we just continued what they were using.
Thank you.
A couple of comments. The first one is, with the millions of dollars Mr. DeFelice has at his disposal, why can't he file for a change in the special permit, increasing the number of trucks entering and exiting from 540 Groton Road? 7 years of this with Westford has done nothing but sent the problem to Chelmsford. They have, it is destroying our neighborhood. You just can't imagine what it's like to live with this truck traffic. And I'm talking from your dump truck to these huge 7, 8 axle, the wheel, it's unbelievable. Living where I have lived for 48 years, there has never been any communication or outreach to the residents affected by the hundreds of trucks barreling by our homes by Mr. DeFelice or representative of Newport. No trust has been built, a willingness to work together and allow the residents to identify upfront what aspects of the traffic presents the greatest challenges. How can Newport Aggregate help ease the burden on Chelmsford residents? that's just a comment. I would think that would go a long way if there was some compromise. If Mr. DeFelice, we have a group of residents. If Mr. DeFelice, our representative, could come to us and say, let's sit down and look at this issue, let's talk about it, let's see what we can do. Let us help you. That would be great. Our roads do not have the width and pavement structure to continue to accommodate 20-plus wheel, 6-7 axle trucks. We are affected by noise, dust, vibration, spills, safety and health issues. The truck traffic is a detriment to our neighborhood. We cannot enjoy the peaceful enjoyment of our most valuable asset, which is our property. Prior to the trucks exiting the aggregate facility, are they weighed or inspected for appropriate load size? Where my house is located, I'm looking at Swain Road. I can't tell you how many trucks, and I know you probably try to make sure that the loads are covered. I have pictures of trucks whose loads are not covered. I see the trucks going up Groton Road whose loads are too high. So they make a turn, and what's over the top of the bed, it's coming out. So they're overloaded and they're not covered. I don't know who's looking at it, or if there are guidelines on weighing these trucks before they leave the property. I don't know if that's done. My last comment. My next door neighbor is my daughter. She has a 17-year-old severely autistic child. Brandon's greatest pleasure was jumping on his trampoline out in the backyard. For the last 5 years, Brandon has not been able to go out and jump on his trampoline because of the trucks, the noise. He walks around with his hands over his ears. He cannot enjoy it. He can't play basketball outside. And these are the kids that need this kind of activity. And he can't participate in it. He doesn't do it anymore. And it's very sad. And it has affected his life. Thank you.
Danny?
Earlier you stated that the last meeting was continued because you reached out to the town for a meeting and that was denied. Can I ask who denied that?
Yeah, we offered to meet with Westford and Chelmsford, and we were told through town council that Chelmsford was not interested in meeting with us.
What was the premise for the meeting? What was the proposal, the premise of the meeting? Can I just ask, like, how was it presented?
Well, you've heard the testimony suggesting that this needs to be a holistic approach. I don't think we disagree with that. But we feel that this is not the avenue to do it. An enforcement order that is legally flawed, is invalid, is arbitrary and capricious, only goes to one of the multiple commercial users is just fundamentally unfair. And I think from the testimony that you're hearing from the residents, we think they matter. We believe that their neighborhood is important. It is the only access that we have to get in and out of our site. But you did hear testimony from one of the neighbors that when they reach out to Newport, we raise our hands and we do something about it.
So when you offered to meet with the towns, how did you present it? Is what I'm asking.
I offered to meet with the towns to talk about these issues and find out what was really driving this.
Okay. Not to sit down and find a compromising solution, or how could we address this to appease everybody, or how do we address this holistically, but what you meet the town is what was driving the cease and desist.
Well, no, I wanted to understand all of these issues. What was it that was, what drove the enforcement order? Because the enforcement order didn't make any sense to me. I couldn't understand, and I still don't understand, how it is that we all know that there are multiple commercial users up there, and Newport is being blamed for the operations of all these independent third parties and for other commercial businesses that are in Chelmsford and in in Westford. And frankly, I couldn't understand why you would issue an enforcement order or how that could possibly be considered anything other than arbitrary if you're only going after one of the parties. And maybe it's just because Newport is perceived to be the biggest. I can't understand why that would be, but I made the proposal because I thought it made sense to try and understand, one, why Newport was being singled out, but also, two, what really are the ways that the underlying issues, not necessarily the enforcement order, but what are the ways in which we could assist with some of these underlying traffic issues that aren't just our problem and aren't created solely by Newport. We were willing to talk about that. And there are other ways that this can be done, and I think this goes to why we feel the enforcement order is so inappropriate. Traffic can be monitored and regulated. The police are out there. My understanding from some of the information that I've seen in the record that the police do patrol that area. We welcome that. Most of these are not. Newport has very few trucks that actually drive up and down ledge roads. These are third-party contractors, many of them going to other sites. We welcome the traffic enforcement. We're happy to talk about those kinds of things that we have some element of control over. But in the context of this enforcement order, there's only one party that's here in the room, and we think that's unfair.
Was Westford willing to meet with you at that same time? Do you know?
I don't know if Westford was willing to meet with us or not.
Okay.
Did you
just
get a
curious.
response from,
Yeah.
did you approach Westford's town council or
In fairness, I spoke to
only Chelmsford?
only to your town council, in part because his firm represents both towns, represents Westford and Chelmsford. So, and the only thing that I heard was that
Chelmsford
there wasn't going to be a meeting. So I really can't speak to Westford's,
Okay.
you know,
That's- I just
appetite for
wanted
a
to understand
conversation.
the scope.
But it also sort of goes to the point of why this enforcement order is so problematic, because one of the parties is not at the table. And the suggestion was that we should go to Westford and solve this. We did. We had an extensive negotiation with Westford to address these issues, and that's how we came to the settlement agreement. My understanding is that Chelmsford was invited at multiple points during that litigation to participate in the litigation with Westford over the asphalt plant issues that also implicated this other operation and was ultimately a part of the settlement agreement. And Chelmsford didn't want to participate. But that was then, this is now. We did make the offer to have those communications, and we did have extended negotiations with Westford that ultimately led to the settlement agreement. And that was also an opportunity. You know, this is almost 10 years ago that settlement agreement happened, and you know, I'm not aware that there were any negotiations with Chelmsford at the time to address any of the issues that they were concerned about with
Was your
respect to Ledge Road.
Westford agreement, though, was focused more on the asphalt operations, not your aggregate operations?
It was, in fairness, it was a result of the litigation regarding the asphalt plant.
Okay.
But it had very specific provisions in it dealing with the Le Mesurier quarry and the possibility that that Newport would acquire the operations of Le Mesurier and of Roma Stone, and
But it
that
hadn't been done
access that had not been done yet.
Okay.
But that access was always understood to be through Ledge Road. And again, you
So
know,
that's-
without graves, it's really hard to have this kind of a conversation about what can really be done. I think
But it's
we've
a-
shown,
just-
and
I just
the
want-
residents
I'm
have
just trying
shown
to
that
just trying to get an understanding. Chelmsford may have been invited, but they didn't own that property yet. So the agreement with Westford was for the asphalt company in Westford. So Chelmsford may have been invited, but the property that we're now discussing, they didn't own at the time. Is that my understanding the timeline correctly?
We were in communication with them, which is why it was in the agreement. I just want to be very clear on the wording of that Westford settlement agreement. The intent behind it was so that asphalt-related trucks do not go through Ledge Road.
Right.
That was why they point everything and they differentiate. And I just want to be very clear as to why certain wording about traffic between the two sites exists. That was the purpose.
Right. But it had nothing to do, or was not affected or impacted, or anything about the quarry operations or aggregate operations.
Discussion with Westford regarding the operation because.
Okay. You didn't own it.
Well, we didn't
No,
own it, but it was.
there would have been no permit requirement or process, so it would have been a moot conversation.
And a mute point for Chelmsford to be involved.
Well, that's
Well-
not entirely true. They made an appeal. And they did enter the situation.
Okay.
Just-
Was that after you owned, was that after you acquired the quarry operations?
Yeah, it's around the same year. I'd have to see exactly when the appeal was filed.
Okay.
I just don't want to answer it correctly.
Okay.
The settlement agreement, it's paragraph 6, talks about the number of vehicles accessing the property, so it's talking about the asphalt plant property. It specifically excludes internal trips between the property and the Fletcher Quarry, as was discussed earlier, located at 534 Groton Road, or the LeMagerie Quarry located off of Ledge Road. And then there are other provisions that also talk about the operations at the LeMagerie Quarry. Specifically, paragraph 3 references the LeMagerie Quarry on-site excavation, cutting, and crushing of materials, and the sale of those materials to off-site purchasers. And then paragraph 4 also references, again, the Fletcher Quarry and the LeMagerie Quarry, contemplates that in this agreement as well that Newport might acquire the LeMagerie Quarry, and speaks to the number of vehicles, and specifically that the vehicle limit doesn't apply to the LeMagerie Quarry and access via Ledge Road.
Right, does not
So-
apply. So it was.
does not apply
It
there.
didn't give them the ability to increase any current ability to, or authorizations or special permits that had been granted with the current operations of those quarries on Ledge Road by Westford.
I'm not sure if I understand the question.
So any special permit or current non-conforming numbers that were being understood, say the traffic truckload was 150 a day during that period by those operations, there was no guidelines or any precluding state clauses in that agreement for the asphalt allowing them to be increased for the quarry operations on Ledge Road.
It doesn't
Everything
talk
was for
about an
asphalt.
increase of operations
Okay.
there. In fairness, though, the issue is not so much whether the agreement contemplated an increase in operations at what was then the LeMagerie Quarry and was specifically contemplated to become part of become acquired by Newport. It didn't. It addressed that issue in the sense that it was known that Ledge Road was going to be the access for that operation. And the reason that I think that's important from a sort of equitable standpoint is the fact that this issue was known to the town of Chelmsford at the time, that there would be vehicles accessing the quarry, the LeMagerie Quarry, the Roma Stone operation, which might become purchased by Newport. All of that was known and contemplated in this agreement. And yes, it was in the agreement. It's referenced in the agreement that Newport might acquire the LeMagerie operation. And so this is not an issue that was not foreseen by any of the parties. And that's why it was specifically referenced in there. And the town did specifically attempt, the town of Chelmsford did, to invalidate that settlement agreement. And the court said no, and Chelmsford took no further appeal on that. So my point in this is that there is a settlement agreement. It did address these issues. And in fairness, Newport has been willing to speak with any of the parties about these issues all along, both with respect to the asphalt plant and with respect to this operation. But again, that's a different conversation. That's not this enforcement order, because this enforcement order only deals and only suggests that there's one commercial user up there, and that's just not the case.
Did the applicant ever get notice from the town, or did someone from the town ever reach out to the applicant prior to the cease and desist?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay.
Well, actually, let me be more precise in that answer. There may have been conversations with Mr. DeFelice about between the town of Chelmsford and the operations up there. In fact, I think Mr. DeFelice met with folks in connection with that feasibility study that I referenced in 2023. So I can't say there were absolutely no conversations, but the enforcement order was the first time that we were told that it was a zoning violation for Newport to be using Ledge Road for access to the Newport aggregate site.
And at no time has Graves and Newport combined had a conversation with any town, both at town jointly about any of this as a group?
We have not had a collective conversation regarding a holistic picture.
Okay.
I mean, to be fair, we're competitors in a way.
Understood.
And I will say, just to that point.
I mean, business is business.
My father, I did meet with, sorry, I don't know who it was, but a representative from the town of Chelmsford. They walked the area in feasibility study, the one that talks about, building a new roadway kind of parallel to Route 3 and then coming out on Route 40. That was an extensive conversation they had. They walked the land. Ultimately, there's reasons in the documents why that couldn't happen. But just to be very clear too, when into what Attorney McKay said, like, we're here for a specific reason. We are not opposed to trying to mitigate the concerns of our neighbors. When we've been told the road is dusty from all of the operations up there, we've sent our sweeper out just to sweep it. We've watered the streets. We've paved down there near the private roadway to make the roadway more efficient. So we have done what we can under the guise of what we can do, because we don't own the road. Certain things we can't go build sidewalks on a whim, right? So we've done what we could do when we've been asked to do it. And again, as a company, we're not adverse to trying to figure out a solution for everybody. Not why we're here tonight. This is a very different issue, but in general, we're not head in the sand, no pun intended, not wanting to, solve this for the neighbors. I just want to make that very clear.
Taking in a lot tonight. I don't know the flavor of the board, honestly, in any sense. Do we want to look at a little more information and continue this? Do we want to vote on the specific count we're here for, is to determine if the enforcement order should be overturned or not? And that is really the only discussion we have as far as a vote goes.
I'm thinking in my mind that we have to uphold Jose's order.
Should we
The
close
reason we have to uphold it is because that'll get everyone talking and everyone to do something for the neighbors, so we can solve this
I very much
problem.
appreciate their position, too. I think
Yeah,
it's
we can
not,
solve this problem in a
amiable.
way that works. Because if we let it go, nothing will happen.
Yeah, but that's not why we're here.
I know that's not why
Yeah,
we're
like,
here.
we can't, I mean, I understand the point and the intention to get
Yes.
people talking.
Yes.
But we can't uphold something with the goal of just getting people talking. There has to be some legal backing behind why
Well,
we're gonna uphold it.
I will say, I need more time to digest the historical information to see to verify the validity of the cease and desist. With all the traffic data reporting, because some of that traffic, the DOT report specifically references Newport's increase in traffic. Like, it specifically references just Newport, the Northern Middlesex Councils of Governments report, and Newport's increased operations. So I don't know if that's why, that was one of the guiding reasons why Newport is singled out on the cease and desist, but I would have to read more of all of the appendixes and annexes and reports to really digest all of the material to see again, everything, I would not be able to come to a conclusion.
To come up.
Danny, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I guess just if the applicant or I mean the Newport is willing to meet with the town to try to work this out, I feel like we should try to at least give the chance to have that meeting to discuss possibilities.
And I can appreciate that position, and that's up to the town, but we have to stay within what our duty is, right? Like, I would love and encourage the town to do that, but our role right here is very narrow in scope, right? And that's Jose's cease and desist, right? And the validity of that. So I would hope and encourage that maybe the town would rethink that stance, but we can't,
Yeah, no, I just meant to agree,
Yeah.
in agreement with you to maybe continue it and.
And just a point of order, Mr. Chairman. Currently, the board's under a statutory deadline to act by January 15th, so we would need the applicant's consent to continue beyond that.
So that would be this meeting, or not. I guess I'd ask your opinion whether you would grant the extension of time.
What are we gonna do with the extension of time? Like, what, not
I-
what could they do, but what would we do?
I don't know. I guess wait for more information, allow Jamie time to digest what's going on.
Maybe.
I personally think that the idea of putting these guys' feet to the fire, so to speak, is not right. I don't think they are alone. I think a lot of testimony had, with all due respect, and I am not there enough to have a strong opinion, but what goes to Swain Road by no means tracks back to Newport singularly. There is many trucks doing many things, a ton of them, and not just Newport.
That's the other thing. Maybe the time would allow someone else to reconsider the scope of the cease, and that it is not solely on Newport's shoulders.
It's been issued. We don't get an amended cease and desist order.
I mean,
If
we
Jose
don't have
says,
that.
as a result of this meeting, I'm going to write another cease and desist letter, whether it included grades, whatever it's his purview to do that, but he's not going to amend it,
Okay.
and we're going to look at it again. He would issue a new one if he feels that that is that's his job.
Gotcha.
That's what he would do, but we're not going to have an amended version come forward and make
that's our, we can, because I
collective
know
decision
sometimes
here.
we have the ability to, modify things, so I wasn't sure.
You would have the ability to modify his order.
We could
Yes.
modify his order.
in the sense that it needs to expand to a larger.
Audience?
No, no. It would be on Jose to decide whether or not to issue a new order to a different party, but the order before you now, you have the ability to uphold it, to completely overturn it, or to modify it.
But it's still only to one party. We could not include
What's
it.
before you tonight is just to Newport.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Well, we'll give it a minute, because this young lady's been patiently waiting.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to
Sorry.
give you your minute or more if need be.
Tried to be quiet, but I can't.
Yeah, you struggle with
Everybody
that.
thinks this is a problem, right?
I think we all agree
I
it's a big
live on the
problem.
land
Name
that
and
they
address.
come down.
Could we just ask your name and address before we?
My name is Shirley Banowski, 79 Ledge Road. I live on the dirt road, and they go over my land every single day. They have widened the road with their, whatever machine it is, both sides, and every time they do it, they take a little more. I have 10 acres of land, yes, but that is my property.
When you say they, are you specific to Newport Materials?
I don't know if it is Newport. I know Graves. He is a bad person to me. I
And
tried to
this is
talk
part
to
of
him
our-
once.
Our problem is that we feel maybe I feel maybe the cease and desist was misdirected.
Maybe what?
Was misdirected.
What was?
The cease and desist order specifically names Newport Materials. I think
No.
there's,
It's not all Newport.
I would concur.
And I met that man, and he is a very, very, very nice person.
Which man?
The owner.
Mr.
Owner of-
DeFelice?
Pardon me? No,
Of what?
a while ago,
The owner of Newport or Graves? Which were
Newport. And I know Graves too. He'd run right over you, and that's just what he's doing, and that's what he told me he was gonna do. And he's doing it. Because somebody did it to him. That's what he told me. I'm not lying.
Oh, I wouldn't think you were, ma'am.
And my husband passed away, and I'm in that house all by myself. I can't even go outside with the trucks going down.
I'm sorry for that. Truly am.
Thank you. I just want to tell you that, you know, I didn't get up here to make a, everybody has said how they feel and what has happened, but I live on the dirt road. I pay taxes on that road. Right up to the, where the highway is. The highway comes down maybe 9-10 feet, and then I own down to my driveway. And when we bought that house, well, it's not the house there, the house we lived in, my husband built the house and that other one got torn down. When we moved there, we were told that we could, that road, because it was only a cart road, it was a dirt road, a cart road, where they used to have animals go up when I moved there. In 1959.
Times
So,
have changed.
There you go.
What is-
So who's taking care of me with them going down on my property? Nobody. And you know what? I don't want their money. I want them gone. Get off my land. And that will take care of everybody. They're going to be gone. Hopefully. If somebody can help me and if the law is what I think it is. Everybody else has spoke. Now I have got it out of my system, and that's how I feel.
I respect your opinion, 100%.
And Graves and I had a talk one day, and he said something to me that he had a man on his property for years, and when he told him to get off, the guy wouldn't go. And he says, I lost my property. And you know what I said to him? Is that what you're trying to do to me? He had nothing to say. So there you go. He's not a nice person, in my mind.
I have not met him.
Okay? Thank you for letting me speak.
You're very
I
welcome.
have more to say, but there's been enough said, and I'm not gonna say no more. Everybody here has got the idea of what's happening, and that's all that counts. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Rodney Elliott. I just want to share some of the work that I've been doing. I'm a state representative for the 16th Middlesex District, and I represent two neighborhoods in Lowell, North Chelmsford, all the way to Westlands. I have filed legislation at the state level. That legislation was filed as a result of a home rule petition that passed town meeting in 2023 on 117 to, I believe, 12 vote. That legislation was filed in May. It was referred to the Committee on Transportation on May 25th. A hearing was scheduled. It was heard in November, and I won't go through the whole chronology. This bill, for some reason, we have a reporting deadline that all bills are supposed to be reported out of committee, either favorably, ought to pass, or they go to a study. This bill was not reported out until the last day, 7/31/2024. I was hopeful. I have shepherded this bill through the House. On August 20th, it was sent to, every bill needs 3 readings. It was ordered to the committee on 3rd readings. On September 12th, this bill went to the floor of the House. And on September 12th, this bill passed the floor of the House to be engrossed to go to the Senate. 2 hours later, this bill, a motion was brought forward that no further action be taken on it. So the reason why I bring this up is, and my bill was not to restrict all vehicles down Ledge Road. I was in, this was advice from House Counsel that it's only for any vehicle with gross vehicle weight of 26,000 pounds. That is significant. I actually have a CDL, and those are dump trucks. So it wasn't targeted at any business or any individual. It was merely dump trucks. So this doesn't have anything to do. I just wanted to bring you up to speed of what we're trying to do at the state level. I also spent 24 years as a Lowell City Councilor, and happen to know a little bit about zoning. By far an expert, because it's very complicated. But I guess I just wanted to clarify through town council, if based on your report, that if this cease and desist order is upheld, then it's upheld. But if it is not, then the other bylaw says that the use has increased, significantly increased, and then the requirement is these operators have to apply for a special permit to this very board.
Correct.
Okay, so sitting down makes some sense, I understand, but that bylaw will still kick in, and they will still require, based upon the increase in traffic, a special permit, one way or the other. Okay, great. I'm always available to help at any particular level. We're just going into another session. I'll meet with the board or the selectmen if they want any other action further. But unfortunately, this bill didn't go any further, and I don't have an answer for why it did not. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Danny?
That special permit requirement, wouldn't that also go on Graves as well?
Well, assuming that
The
they're,
building inspector, as he interprets it, would, if he decides that there is in fact an increase, and in fact that it's Graves, and he can write another enforcement order that may require the special permit. Would that go to the planning board? Was that the case? Are you familiar?
I'm not 100% sure.
I'm not sure either. That's why I asked. I pray a little, but we don't know. So we're at a crossroads here. I think we've taken enough testimony to understand the problem. I've made my thoughts clear on it, but it's certainly something we can vote on. We can consider continuing it. I don't know, as Steve said, what the gain would be.
We need permission to continue, yeah?
Pardon?
We need permission from the.
We would still need to have that question answered to actually continue. That is the attorneys and the DeFelice's choice to decide whether they'd like to extend that time.
Well, we'd have to decide if we need or want it first, right? Do we feel like
Well, there's
we-
no decision, and even if they're not gonna grant it,
Somebody's
then
gonna make the
they make that
decision,
decision
isn't it?
for
Us,
us.
isn't
Yeah, but if we don't need it, then we wouldn't ask them to grant it. If we said, oh, we have enough information, there's no reason to ask for the extension, but if we feel like we would gain something from the time, then I would say we go forth and say, well, but if everyone here tonight was like, I've heard everything I need to hear, I'm ready, then there'd be no point to putting that out there as my.
Does everyone feel that we have enough information to make a decision? The 5 voting members? I mean, I'm willing to close the public hearing at this point and go to a vote, and we'll see where the chips may lie. I just,
Well, if we vote now, then that's the vote, right?
Right, the vote would be to uphold, it would be to deny the building
Uphold the
inspector.
cease and desist.
You could
I
do,
thought there was an affirmative that's requested, that's not critical.
so the application was to overturn, so, you could entertain a, motion to grant the appeal and overturn.
Turn it,
And everyone would
with
say.
the idea that there's potentially a flaw in the way it was presented that can be remedied. What we're doing is addressing this specific cease and desist order.
We can't add anything onto it though, right? We're just voting one way or the other.
Well,
Well,
I think we could make
you could-
changes to it.
You could make changes to it.
But I don't think we could do, if I'm not mistaken, we couldn't do anything like, from this point forward, their hours are 8:30 till
No.
4. I don't think there's any adjustment of
No,
their
But
right
bringing
to
everybody to the
business.
table is, like Charlie was talking about, if it forces people to do that, then that makes a lot of sense, to uphold it. You know what I mean?
Well, I think they would have the right to appeal if
Yeah,
we're,
right.
even by having this decision, they're sort of
Right.
gaining the right to appeal. If we're saying, we know it's not right, but we're gonna do this.
Right.
I think the appeal would be very, very quick.
Very.
My thoughts on it.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that we have to decide whether, as issued, the cease and desist is valid and really answers the question, is Newport solely responsible for the increase in it? Or should they be, I didn't quite understand how you put holistic, but should they be the only ones held responsible for using Ledge Road when there's clearly another party, at least one other party, that is using the roadway and providing
But
traffic?
that doesn't negate there's nothing saying that Jose doesn't come out tomorrow and issue another cease and desist for another party, but the cease and desist doesn't invalidate Newport's responsibility.
Well, I don't disagree with you, but the idea of just saying, I mean, could we say, we could allow a number of trucks? Would that be, would it even be enforceable?
No, yeah, I don't think we should go down that road.
I agree, I'm
Has
just
town
trying to
council-
understand what we do.
Have you
What is
read
right?
the traffic studies? I mean, I've read some of it, and based on the information that's there, the finger pointing is at Newport. You mentioned it. I didn't remember seeing it, but I want to be firm of where the finger pointing is in those traffic studies. Is it the number of vehicles by Newport only? Is it all the vehicles? Is it an increase more so for Newport than for Graves? Because it sounds like those are the two companies from the public input, right? Is that fair to
I think
say?
those have definitely increased their volume
Right.
much greater than lead measuring.
I've had Graves come to my house. Oh, yeah, I know they truck, yep.
So, I think there's been some new information raised tonight about Graves that I wasn't aware of.
Okay.
So I certainly am willing to talk to Jose about that, not willing to disclose. There's been new information raised tonight, particularly about Graves and their operation that I was not aware of, that I haven't had a chance to discuss with the building commissioner. Obviously, I can't decide for him how he would want to proceed, but I think the real question before you tonight is just limited to Newport, and based on the traffic data that you've seen and the clear increase in that traffic, I did hear an acknowledgement that there was an expansion by Newport to some extent of their operations since they took over. An expansion of a pre-existing non-conforming use requires a special permit. And Newport doesn't have that at this point.
Here's my view, Chairman. Based on what we've seen and what like I said, I would like to divulge further, but there is evidence that Newport has increased operations to a point that is hazardous and against the neighborhood. The cease and desist is qualified against Newport. Now, notwithstanding, is Newport solely responsible? Probably not. And that would be something I would think that the commissioner, the building commissioner, could take up. but not, in my opinion, holding the cease and desist would negate. I think if we don't uphold it, then it's saying that Newport has no responsibility, in my opinion. And I don't think that's the right decision either.
Right.
In my opinion.
We're in a tough spot here, there's no doubt.
It really is, it's brutal.
So, just in my experience, when there's a traffic study that's done, there's usually a peer review done on that, and obviously we can't require that. For the traffic study to specifically say that these are all Newport, that's the problem that I have with the traffic study.
It didn't say all Newport.
It
just says
but
the
it
truck.
doesn't differentiate whose trucks they are, and there's no way to tell the difference between them. And that's where the trouble I have with the traffic study is. And for the cease and desist, we're solely making it prohibiting the use on them, which I feel if we're prohibiting, like, there's a cascading effect because Graves is also a party in this.
I agree there is a flaw in the cease and desist. I absolutely agree there is a flaw in it, but.
So then we can't uphold it.
We can't not, we can't, it's not complete. I don't think it's complete, but it's not wrong. It's just not complete.
But that's what we have. So if it is incorrect, it should be remedied, which another cease and desist can be issued, but this one is flawed, in my opinion.
If we overturn this ruling tonight, and can Jose go issue 2, if that's what it is? I'm not saying they should be issued. I'm saying, can he legally go do that? So we overturn this.
New one to Newport?
Yeah.
Yes, issue to both companies.
That could be
at that point.
problematic.
Right. That'd be problematic, because we just overturned it. Why is he gonna turn around and issue another one tomorrow if we just overturned one today?
You need to have some different reason for coming up with a new one.
The idea of requiring a special permit is not even on the table. If Jose were to say, what I'm gonna do is require a special permit for both Graves and Newport, that may be a solution where we have some ability to control the amount of traffic.
Well, I think one determination you could make is you could agree with Newport that when they assumed operations, they assumed a certain extent of a pre-existing non-conforming use, but that use has expanded such that they require a special permit. You could make that determination.
That sounds like a motion.
Well,
Is that still overturning?
It's an opportunity, I don't know.
Is that still
It's
overturning? Oh, modifying, okay.
So if we say that they are, so their assumption of the pre-existing non-conforming, and now they have exceeded the pre-existing non-conforming, will require them a special permit. And so what we're saying, until they get that, they have to reduce operations back to 2017 numbers? Sure. Until they get that special permit?
How do we determine 2017?
The traffic report.
That's not a Newport traffic report, that's a.
Overall traffic.
Exactly.
If Newport cuts by 50% and Graves or
Well,
whoever stays where they are, they're still gonna be over 2017 numbers, so.
I know. I'm sure they have reports of how many trucks came out of their own lot in 2017. But I don't, I'm just asking, how do we, you're saying, yes, we tell them they need a special permit. How does that solve what we're doing right now until they get issued a special permit? Like, and how do we get a possible party involved?
Who tells them they need a special permit? I don't think we tell them they need, doesn't Jose have to?
That's what I'm saying. That's what he's saying.
Modify it.
That's what he's saying. We can modify this to say that instead. That's
Chairman,
fine.
be heard on that for just a moment. I think the reason the board is struggling with this is because it's an arbitrary enforcement order and it should be overturned, period, full stop. The town has the burden to issue an enforcement order that, standing on its terms, is valid and enforceable. And it's clear that the information that you have shows that the town did not consider the fact that there are other commercial users. The traffic study does not, if you can even call it a traffic study, I don't think that's a traffic study that was conducted in accordance with the appropriate standards. It doesn't have an engineer stamp on it. You can't even tell who did that one study that talks about the drone flights and so forth. So I don't think that's a valid study, but even if it were, it doesn't distinguish between Newport traffic and the other users. And we all know there's other users up there. So that study should not be taken as evidence that there should be an enforcement order against Newport. This is a invalid and improper enforcement order. If the town wants to have a conversation about addressing some of the issues that we've talked about tonight, I think that's a fair conversation to have. We were willing to have that conversation. We've always been willing to have that conversation. But for tonight's purposes, this board should not be attempting to create and manufacture a pre-existing non-conforming use issue that was not put in the enforcement order, that was not something that the building inspector suggested. You have no data that suggests that 2017 is the right starting point, or 2018, or 2020, or any of those things. You just don't have the data, and it's the town's responsibility to provide that for you. So I would request that the board do what we think is the right thing, to deny and overturn this enforcement order, and we'll have the conversation that you folks are suggesting that we should have, and we'll also invite Graves and LeMajor and the Gilmets to have that conversation. You're trying to solve a problem that you haven't been given the tools to solve, and you're trying to do it in the context of an enforcement order, and that's just not the appropriate place to do it. So I know that we'll have that conversation with the town and with these other parties, but this isn't the way to do it.
Does the town of Chelmsford have any grounds to offer a special permit? What is it, a road use? Because both quarries are in Westford, correct?
Yes.
All four of them.
All the quarries are in Westford, so so it would be Jose, is it a road use?
To be honest, council, I think you got input on this matter. My enforcement letter is basically based on the residential district.
Right.
And the increase since 2017, since Newport took over the site, that's what the study, that's the data that I have, and that's the data that I use to make this determination. It's basically a cease and desist of such operation that was increased since 2017. I know town council made some misleading statement about my letter, but if you really read into the letter, it's really a cease and desist to stop the increase of equipment that the trucking that is being going down Lesh Road. So,
but again, it comes back
if it comes down to a special permit,
what are we offering? That's what I'm saying. What are we going to issue?
Sit down with myself and Evan and town council to further discuss how.
I mean, it's a road use
personally
permit. It's not a quarry use permit, right?
No, we can't do anything about the quarry. It's not in Chelmsford.
No, but that's what I mean. So has the town ever issued anything like that?
No.
Did anyone know of?
It would be a special permit to expand the pre-existing non-conforming use of the private portion of Ledge Road.
Okay.
Would that allow some control as to volume?
Yes.
I mean, that is the goal, ultimately, is to find a way to reduce the volume, whether it be an hourly thing or a per truck ideal. But I still feel very strongly that if you're going to say that to Newport, you should say it to Graves. And I know the two other guys are not on the same level as Graves and Newport. They're almost mom and pop. But
how do we, and then, like, if.
May I ask a question?
Sure. Yep.
We haven't closed it, have we?
No, don't close it. Everett Olson, 140 Groton Road. I'd hate to see this issue confounded by the proration. What's the proration here? I will say again, as a lifelong resident of that neighborhood where all of this traffic proceeds through. This issue did not start until 2017 and has been increasingly exacerbated since then. If I understand, there are only two major operations, a heavily capitalized Newport and a lesser capitalized, if I'm correct, Graves. May I ask Town Council, because I'm partially deaf and I didn't hear some of what you said, is it possible to uphold this cease and desist order and then at another meeting come back with a cease and desist order against the next company, that being Graves? Is there anything to prohibit that?
No.
I just don't want to see this issue confounded by who's responsible for all the traffic. The person who's been there, using these eyes, using all my videos and photos, says it began in 2017, when Newport began its operations in earnest. I would implore you to uphold the cease and desist order, and then if you feel you want to do so against Graves, because if they're a contributing factor, then come back, issue a cease and desist order against Graves, and let's do something about this issue. We keep going round and round and round, and the people in this audience right now, and my wife and I, are living with misery day in and day out. And I don't want to rehash all this, but if that's a viable alternative, according to Town Council, of upholding this cease and desist and then issuing a separate one against Graves, I'm going to implore you to do that. That's the only way this nonsense is going to stop.
That's right, go one right over. Increased profit means increased volume. Assume profits is increased.
You still want your month? Excuse me, Mr. Chair, are we getting a month extension? Because I'm with Jamie.
You'd like more time for?
Yes, please, Stephen. Okay.
We're going to request an extension of time from you, gentlemen, and your response is awaited.
And we're willing to do that. We'd request that we have an opportunity to meet with the town this time, if that's really the goal of the exercise. And I think the other parties ought to be invited to that meeting as well, because this is not a problem that Newport alone can resolve for the town or for the residents. I think you've heard testimony that we're a responsible operator, and when we get the call to fix something, we fix it. But you know, we can't do this alone, which goes to the reason why we feel so strongly about this enforcement order. But if the board's requesting a continuance for that purpose, we're happy to try and do that.
I think that I could ask both Town Council and the Building Commissioner to approach the powers that may be and ask for that meeting. I think that's the limit of my authority. We're willing to do that. I would suggest that we continue this until February 6th with the hope that the town is willing to meet. I don't know whether Graves would be willing to. I don't know whether that would allow Jose to consider his position on enforcement orders, not just for Newport, but that's not my purview of the building commissioner. So, could we anticipate an extension of time in writing until, at this point, let's say March, the March meeting, give us a month to do something and a month to act on it? March 6th is also.
February?
Well, we're going to meet on February 6th. I guess our request would be till March 6th. If we come in February and we can make some progress, you know,
With the
maybe a little,
town.
I mean, I guess we could ask for another extension on February 6th, whatever you're comfortable with. It's not our decision.
Just to clarify, it's two different things. One is the board is considering continuing this hearing until next month, February 6th, but they are also requesting of you an extension to act on your appeal.
So
And that would be
March
beyond-
6th.
So that would be
Right,
beyond
I understood.
February.
Okay, so effectively, it's a 60-day continuance, not just a 30-day.
Correct.
It'll be a little more because today is only the 2nd, but yes.
Yeah, more like, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that would give an opportunity for the meeting with the town, take action.
So when they have a cease and desist, are they able to still operate right now?
They shouldn't be legally because it's a cease and desist.
Is it a daily fine, is that correct?
I haven't taken that approach.
They're operating.
So, Mr. Chairman, we're okay with the 60-day extension to that March meeting.
Okay, we'd ask for that in writing.
And we're happy to give that to you in writing. I do want to emphasize, and I recognize that it's not necessarily this board's call, but it is predicated
That's
on
part of the
the
problem is we don't
understanding.
feel we have enough tools, as you said, to act, but we definitely see things that could be done in a different way that may come out favorable for everyone involved.
And I just want to emphasize and go on the record that part of the reason for this extension, and we're willing to agree to that, is the notion that the town will meet with us and talk with us about this, and also invite those other parties to participate in that conversation. I recognize that's not something that's fully within this board's authority to give, but I just want to put on the record that we are willing to have that conversation in good faith, and that's part of the reason why we're willing to agree to the continuance.
I'm sure some encouragement from other parties will help hopefully influence others to join the table.
That's heard, and honestly, we can control what we can control.
No, that wasn't meant for you guys at all, by any means. No, you are here. You are here. Wasn't meant for you guys. No, not for you at all. And if I took it that way, I apologize.
No,
Absolutely not.
I just want to be clear.
No, you are here. Absolutely, you are here. We hear you.
I think we're going to continue this meeting until February 6th,
I'll make-
and hope that people are willing to meet and come up with some ideas that may. I'd suggest also that perhaps you could talk to maybe Mr. Elliott or others in the audience and see if we couldn't get someone from the neighborhood to be a bit of a participant in this and share some ideas, as they are the ones truly affected by this.
Or encourage some attendance.
We have motion continue.
I'll make a motion to continue the Ledge Road Administrative Appeal with the approval of the letter of extension coming from the lawyer representing
Mr. McKay.
Newport Aggregate LLC.
Second. Second, all in favor? Aye. It's unanimous?
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was great.